audio is on, we're good to go.
Okay. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. This is the time and the place for the June 19 regular school board meeting for the Marshalltown Community School District. Welcome to those of you joining us here in person this evening. Welcome as well to anybody tuning in on the live stream or who might be watching this at any point in time. Before we get going too far, we'll do introductions for the folks here. Board members start to my left. We have Karina Hernandez and Leah Stanley. To my right, Zach Wall, Bonnie Lowry, and Jan McGinnis. Seated here at the center table with me, we have Dr. Theron Schutte, the Superintendent of Schools, and Randy Denham, our Board Secretary, and I am Sean Heitman. Couple of announcements. We've got a pink sign-up sheet there on the speakers table for anybody who would like to speak at the public comment time. Please understand, well, to start with, you'll be given 5 minutes to speak. Understand that Iowa law prohibits the discussion of specific employees of the district or their job performance. Please also understand that in accordance with board policy, board members may not respond to comments so that we can comply with open meeting laws. With that, did I get them all?
Got them all.
Okay. Would you please join me in reading the mission statement of the Marshalltown School District? We develop learners who have the knowledge, skills, and positive mindset to successfully pursue a meaningful future through personalized learning experiences. And please stand as you're able and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
We do. We've got 4 items that we will remove from the agenda this evening with the hope and desire to reinstitute them for the July 10th meeting. 1.03, the public hearing related to the solar field lease with Lion Energy. 6.02, which is an agreement with Bolton Mink with the City Council, slowing down the work on the Main Street project at the last council meeting. We need to step back and reassess how best to approach the Orpheum parking lot rebuild. And 6.03 is an agreement with Boyd Jones for construction management as agent services. Our attorney had some suggested changes and which Boyd Jones were agreeable with, but we didn't have it in time to get the most recent agreement on the agenda. And then 6.05, the solar lease with Alliant Energy, we're still waiting on mutual agreement on that language. So we had hoped, both parties had hoped we'd have that by Friday or Saturday, but we did not get it. So those will come back, assuming we can have all of those in some way, shape, or form on July 10th.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Move to approve.
Second.
Lowry, Wall, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. So with that, then, Abby, recognitions.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So for recognitions tonight, sealed by literacy and English proficiency, Marshalltown High School had 56 members of the class of 2023 earn the seal by literacy, which is a record count for the district. To earn it, a student during high school must achieve proficiency on a state English assessment and establish proficiency in another world language assessment. In addition, over 160 K through 12 English learner students have reached English proficiency and have exited the program. I invited tonight Rachel Inks and some of the students who have gone through the seal by literacy program or have exited the English learner program to come out tonight and explain their experience. So,
Well, good evening. I'm Rachel, and I
Hey.
am.
Grab a
Rachel,
mic,
grab a microphone.
All right, thank you. I brought two students with me tonight who have earned the seal of literacy as your 2023 Marshtown Bobcat graduates. And I want to give them each an opportunity to speak with you this evening and share a little bit about their story and what earning the seal of literacy means to each one of these students. And I'll let you introduce yourself too.
Okay. Hello, my name is Adele Ruiz. I am a recent graduate of 2023 year. The seal of literacy to me means that I can communicate with others on a more of level and than one language, especially in this growing world and circumstances that the United States is currently in. My father was an immigrant. He came here. So was my grandparents and grandparents on my mother's side. So it's especially important to me is that I'm able to demonstrate to college workers and advisors there that I'm able to speak and to comprehend in more than one language to service others.
Do you want to share what your plans are for next year?
Yeah, so my plans for next year are to go to Iowa State University and earn a degree in electrical engineering and just work, essentially.
And speaking of working, he just paused his shift at Applebee's to join us, so we thank you very much for doing that. Tell us your name.
Hello, my name is Bawi Par, and I am bilingual in English and Hakachin. So earning the seal of literacy is very beneficial as it recognizes my effort to keep my native language in such a diverse community, and it also allowed me to be able to translate in both English and Hakachin. My plan for this year is to attend the University of Iowa and major in psychology with APA interests.
Bawi Par earned her seal of literacy through our partnership with Embark. Embark is ethnic minorities of Burma and their agency that we partner with out of Des Moines, and they were able to deliver a biliteracy test for Bawi Par. And Adele got his through our cooperation with STAMP, which is a online assessment that measures various languages like Spanish. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Congratulations.
Well, and Rachel, I don't want it to go unnoticed that you and Shauna and others, I'm sure, put on a phenomenal celebration of our English language learners who attained proficiency this year. The celebration was on the very last day of school, which I thought was going to be iffy for people to attend, but we had a relatively high percentage of attendees, and it just was really, truly a celebration.
Yeah, that was a really a fun celebration of the school and the home partnership and really our students reaching proficiency in English. And we know that there are varying ways that students learn that, whether they acquire it through school, especially in their academic studies with us. But we also know that there's important partnerships that happen at home. So we had half of our English learner exiting students show up for that, that celebration, and we hope to grow that and make it a continued annual event.
Nice.
Thank you, Theron.
Looking at the consent agenda, then we've got minutes from the June 5 board meeting. Dr. Ryan, any items to note in personnel? Looking at interagency agreements and contracts, there's a service agreement with Mid-Iowa Community Action to provide Bobcat University programming. There's a Bob Rogers tour agreement for Marshalltown High School students to travel to Orlando, Florida next March. An English language consultant contract with Central Rivers AEA for 85 days of service. A letter of endorsement with Junior Achievement in Central Iowa for 3DE Collaborative Future Launch. And equipment modification consent request with USCOC of Greater Iowa. A mural agreement with Marshall County Arts and Culture to install a mural at Woodbury Elementary. And are we doing that amendment, Darren, to Bobcat Boulevard? Or does that need to?
Yeah, we need to table that as well.
Okay. So the best way to do that, seems to me, is to remove it from the consent agenda and table it. Okay. Mr. Parliamentarian, do I need a motion to remove it, or can we just pull it by?
When you approve the consent agenda, you want to do it separate, so you will approve the remainder of the consent agenda as is, and then make a separate motion to table the
Bobcat
agreement.
Boulevard
Yeah.
agreement? Okay. Somebody remember that.
I got you.
Okay. Questions about any of those first 6 contracts or agreements? Okay. Looking at open enrollments, there are 5, 2 in, 3 out. Randy, anything to note in bills or the financial report?
No, not this month.
Questions from any board members about the bills or the financial report? And then in gifts, grants, and bequests, we've got a donation from the MHS class of 1981 in the amount of $16,160 for a Bobcat statue to be placed at the site of the new high school athletic complex. Dr. Schutte is I believe,
Proud
member of the class of 1981. Is there anything you'd like to?
No, just that I think this will be a nice enhancement for the entrance area of the stadium complex, and I was glad that my 81 classmates are willing to step forward and help support the purchase of that.
Okay. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the Bobcat Boulevard agreement.
Second.
McGinnis, Stanley, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. And then a motion to table that Bobcat Boulevard agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Lowry, Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Nobody on the pink sheet? Stacy?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm happy to be here tonight to give our annual health report. We'll just jump right in and go to the first slide that has information about our health office staff. So we did not have any changes this year to our health office staff. The only thing, that I would make note of is that, just like all the other departments within our district, we had some issues getting sub-nurses. So as all the other departments do, you make it work. Of course, we have health plans in place for all of our students, and even if we don't have a nurse in that building at the time, we have nurse coverage. If for medication, we have staff that are certified in each of the buildings as well to do that if there's not a nurse. But the nurse subs shortage, it's real. And just like it is, in all the other departments. So we continue to always look for good sub nurses that want to pick up days. All right, we can go to the next slide. Just a list of the nursing services. The one thing that I just highlighted there that I wanted to make note of course, these are all very important services that we are able to provide to our district through our health offices. The third bullet point there, the maintain the stock medication for health emergencies, anaphylactic reactions, and opioid overdoses. That is relatively new for our health offices. As you guys know, we approved the epinephrine, the stock epinephrine policy policy a while back here, and we do have stock epinephrine in every building for use from students to staff to visitors that may have an anaphylactic reaction and not have their own EpiPen available. And I can say that we have not had to use one of those yet. But it's always great to have that on hand in case an emergency would happen to arise. And then tonight I am going to talk a little bit in regards to the Narcan, the stock Narcan policy. That will be in first read for tonight, and I'll discuss that in a further slide. Various other school nurse roles. This is pretty unchanged from what we have, performed in the past. There's classroom education that our nurses provide, from health curriculum to the health fair that I hold at the high school for our high school students and staff. We have community partners that come in and provide some much needed health information. We coordinate with MICA for the pregnancy, for our pregnancy prevention program with our ASH coalition. They do a wonderful job coming in and facilitating that for us. We do our staff trainings for our EpiPen, our Medicaid, or our medication administration, and our Medicaid training as well. And then our nurses also serve on various committees and teams within their building, and that is pretty specific to each building. The one thing that I didn't add on here that I thought of later for myself, I serve on the UEN Health Service group, and we meet quarterly. And it's health service directors as well as lead nurses within the UEN, the Urban Education Network. We meet and collaborate in regards to policies, protocols, health trends we're seeing. It's a great group of people. We also have Maggie Buckton that also comes on and updates us regarding legislative changes that would affect us, in our health offices. So that is it's a great group to be able to collaborate with as well. Okay. Now we'll jump into our data here. So our enrollment was 5,193 as of 5/31, and we have 44% of our students that have a listed health condition. And we obtain these health conditions through our online registration. And then sometimes as the school year progresses, parents will update us, if there are new diagnoses. Our percent hasn't changed a lot. I started doing our reports back in 2017, and at that time we had 46% of our students, and our enrollment was pretty close. We're always within 100 to 200, in our enrollment. So our percent of students listing a diagnosis has not changed much since that time. And then going into the specific health conditions. So we track these specific conditions because the National Association of School Nurses advise that these are kind of the big diagnoses that you sometimes will see trends with. We have not seen a lot of increase in the majority of these diagnoses. However, I have noted that our anxiety diagnosis has been trending upward, which is to nobody's surprise, I'm sure. Our depression diagnosis, surprisingly, has not changed a lot. And oftentimes, depression, anxiety, we'll get a diagnosis in on a student, and it'll be both of those. But we definitely have not seen the depression rise like we have the anxiety. And so I just wanted to share a couple statistics with you. So let me get to those here. So pre-pandemic, our anxiety numbers, so I'm basing it on a full district, and then I'll divide it out for you per building. But as in the 2018-2019, obviously pre-pandemic, we had 2.8% of our students in the entire district that listed anxiety as a diagnosis. And breaking that down, our MHS and MLA, we had 5% of our students. So out of our 1,500, we had 5% of those students showing that listed anxiety as a diagnosis. And in 2018, Miller Middle School, they had 2% of their student population had that diagnosis, and Lenahan also 2%. And then a combination of our elementaries and Four Oaks, it was 1.5%. Now, move forward to this school year, and as a whole, our district had 5.6% diagnosis of anxiety. Now, breaking that down is where we see, more of that. Well, that is an increase, obviously, but breaking it down to the schools, MHS and MLA is now 10% of our students. So, of my 1,551 students enrolled in those two buildings, 159 students have reported diagnosis of anxiety, which is, it is a pretty significant increase, not surprising. Kind of follows the trends that you see nationally as well as in Iowa. And Miller, they currently this year showed 6%. So they had, out of their 791 students, they had 48 students reporting an anxiety diagnosis. Lenahan, 5.5%. Out of their 739 students, 41 students showed that. And in our elementary and therapeutic classrooms, it was 2.2% of their students had reported an anxiety diagnosis. Now, certainly, those numbers could even be higher. We have simply what parents report to us. So I just see that trending upwards, and we know there could be so many causes, and I know it's been reported, from our, various departments that certainly with the pandemic, with our tragedies that have occurred within our district with students' deaths, as well as our derecho and tornado, all of that obviously could have caused that increase. But, I know that our district works closely with our local providers, our mental health providers, to get those students the care that they need. But there again, that is a struggle because we know there is a shortage of mental health services. So that is health conditions for this year. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay.
I just have one.
Yeah.
Is ADHD included in any of this? Because it seems like the nurses are dealing with that a lot.
Yeah, we do, definitely. It's not listed as a diagnosis. It has been one, though, that we have in the past have collected data on. And for some reason, it's not listed in the National Association of School Nurses as a diagnosis, to follow. But we have in the past, we certainly can, with our Infinite Campus system, it's pretty amazing. You can just pull up reports. So that is certainly something that we can track, for sure.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Going to our outcome of health office visits. So we had a total of 74,044 visits, and of course that spans throughout the district. Obviously our larger buildings, we have the highest number of health office visits. And our numbers stay pretty steady. Some years we've gone up into the 76,000, and of course the pandemic year when we had just our hybrid learning in some of the buildings, our numbers dipped down into the 50-some thousand. I can tell you, on an average in the high school health office, we see anywhere from 100 to about 130, 140 students a day pass through. And I can tell you I have 35 health office visits scheduled per day, and those are most generally for medication or various treatments. So if you look at that, you see how many other kids pop in, for headaches, various complaints as well. So, and of those total visits, 2,081 were sent home. And so that shows that a lot of times we're able to take care of whatever they're needing and get them assessed and get them back into their classes so that they can be learners. So we had a total of 7 ambulance calls this school year. We always do track that. That is not just for students, so some of those are for staff as well. Okay. And then our 504s and emergency health plans, nurses are involved with those because they generally, involve a diagnosis. So with our 504s, you can see based on the buildings that have the higher enrollments, that's where you see the higher numbers of the 504s. And nurses assist with that by getting the diagnosis for the administrator and counselor as they're working on that 504, and we help with any, accommodations that may be needed for that specific diagnosis. And then certainly the nurses do create the emergency health plans for students that have any kind of life-threatening life-threatening conditions or diagnoses, and we share those with their education team so they have the support they need if an emergency should arise. Okay. And emergency stock medication. So as we spoke to a little bit ago, the epinephrine, we already have our board policy in place. Tonight, I would like you guys to, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about our Narcan policy. I don't know if you guys had a chance to review that or not, but so Narcan is a opioid antagonist, which means if a person has had an overdose of an opioid, and some of the common opioids are like hydrocodone, oxycodone, and of course the new synthetic opioid is the fentanyl that you hear of. All of those can come in pill form or various forms. One thing that we're seeing the trends of are, unfortunately, our vape cartridges can be laced with some of these substances as well. So with seeing these overdoses on a rise, nationally, locally, we feel that it would be very important to have Narcan in place in our buildings. We currently have, so our school resource officers carry Narcan on them all the time. That's part of their role as police officers. However, oftentimes they're off doing the things that they do, and they may not be available to us when we need that Narcan. And also, we think it's important to have it in every building, because we don't know, it could be staff, little kids can bring things to school, accidentally, or staff, in all the buildings. So we think it's important that we stock Narcan in all of our buildings. So that is our goal, that would be passed so that we can have the Narcan available for such emergencies and be prepared for our students and staff or visitors if needed. We are going to partner with Situsi, which is our local mental health agency. They will come and they're going to do a training for the nursing staff, and then we will train the specific staff at our buildings, our medication administrator, staff members, and then any other staff members as well. And we will stock it in all the buildings. Any questions on that?
And that policy is on tonight's agenda for initial review, and then it will come back at the next meeting.
Yeah, okay, very good. Okay, state requirements. So these are unchanged. We continue to have our dental screens that we partner with. We partner with the iSmile program through MICA. They come in and they do the dental screens as well as our the fluoride treatments that they do. It's a wonderful partnership. Our hearing screens are primarily performed by our local AEA, and vision screens are through our Lions Club as well as the Kids Sight program through the University of Iowa. Nurses also do vision screens quite frequently within their buildings for anytime it is we are referred to, a teacher, a staff member has a concern, a parent calls, we do that initial screen and then do the referrals out as well. Our immunization audits, those are incredibly important, and our nurses work very hard on those. Marshall County Public Health comes in and does our audit in the fall. And of course, as you all know, we have quite an influx of students from various states, from various countries, and they come with sometimes no vaccines to very sparse vaccines. So we have to work closely with those students coming in unless they have specific waivers or they fit into some of the other groups, such as like the homeless that we're going to talk about later, then because there are policies, in place for those. then students have to have at least one of all the required vaccines in order to start school. So, it's very difficult to get into our local doctor's offices because they're swamped already. So our public health department has worked with us very closely to get these needed vaccines so we can get students in school as quickly as possible. And so we're very fortunate to be able to have Marshall County Public Health right here to be able to help us, and they bring the vaccines right into our schools, so we can do them there, and it's a wonderful partnership, and I really hope they don't take public health into more of a regional, it's a regionally, so they may not be located right here in Marshalltown, and so I'm really trying to promote that we keep them local, because we certainly utilize them within our school district to help us out. All right. And our Medicaid claiming, so we billed on 88 students this year. I don't know what the reimbursement was, but the nurses do coordinate that Medicaid billing within their buildings. And I know that there's going to be some changes with that. Nurses will still coordinate and collect the information, but I think the billing process is going to change a little bit as far as at the end portion of it for the next school year. And let's see here. Oh, stories from our health office. Well, I was told many years ago when Marilyn Peasley, which many of you I'm sure will remember, she used to always ask her nurses to share some stories, anything that might be interesting or people may not know about what happens in their health office. So I asked my nurses, and I got some kind of fun some information. It's just things that are kind of outside of their daily duties that nurses do. And one of the nurses was very excited for the fact that she, when she was performing vision screens on her elementary age students, this is from an elementary building, 60 of the students that she screened, she got vision referrals for, and 35 of those students came back with glasses. And that's pretty amazing. That's a great thing. I mean, if you think about that, if they weren't screened, they still may not have those glasses. And the other really cool thing is that if we belong to the National Association of School Nurses, which many of our nurses do, then we are part of a vision program that the Eye Care Associates, Dr. Chatterton, participates with us, and we get vouchers as being members of the National Association of School Nurses, and we use these vouchers for our students, and it's unlimited. We can get as many as we need, and we give that to the families if they have no vision insurance. And Eye Care Associates will do a free vision exam and give free glasses. It's amazing. We have some really great partners in our community. And then one of the nurses told me that, she identified a couple students that had some respiratory issues, and their families were able to get them in, and they were found to have exercise-induced asthma, and now they have inhalers. She worked with the families and taught them how to use their inhalers. Another nurse said that she had several students that had broken bones this year, and so she worked with the PE teacher to make sure that they could make accommodations so these students with broken bones could still somehow participate safely in PDE. One of the nurses said that, she shopped the Assistant League sale for clothes for a student and family. She met them there and did that. And so then the next day she met with that student to make a thank you note for the Assistants League. And she said that student, she said, I think people don't even realize how needed some of these, clothing is, how we don't realize sometimes how much that means to kids. And the student said, I really needed those clothes, so I had clean clothes to put on after my shower. And she said he had and then made a big smiley face. Another nurse told me that she just had many, many referrals this year for glasses, dental fillings, and other needed procedures. That same nurse told me that she had a student that was running a fever, just not feeling well, couldn't get a hold of family. It was towards the end of the day, and so at the end of the day, she walked that student with the fever to her child care provider so that she would be able to get the support she needed. And then another nurse told me that she did multiple home visits with other school staff, and she can interpret, so she was able to help interpret and explain the incredible need that this student had for health and mental health services, and they were able to get this student connected. So those are just a few of the stories, but I really wanted to share some of those, and I want to thank you guys for the support that you give us in our health offices. I want to thank the school board as well as our administrators. We really appreciate it, and if anybody has any questions for me.
I don't have questions, but as a professional educator for many years, I really appreciate school nurses. I've had them help with everything from students who have been assaulted to students who couldn't get lunches because their parents didn't know how to do the paperwork, to medications, they've just been a huge, huge help. So
Thanks for
I do
sharing that.
appreciate
Yeah.
nurses.
Yes, we appreciate that, and that's what we see our role. We sometimes are that bridge in between, getting that health care that's needed and education so that kid can be at school. Yep, thank you. All right, and I think I just have the last slide that I just in conclusion, I'm not going to read through all that, but we promote the health, well-being, academic success, and lifelong achievement of our students. Keeping our students safe, healthy, and ready to learn is the priority of our health offices. All right.
Any other questions at all?
Well, as Stacy mentioned, we're blessed to be in a district that places a high value on having nurses in every building, and in addition to the high-quality nurses that we have, I think most of you recognize we've got unbelievable leadership from Stacy and during some of the most difficult times that we've had the last few years. So greatly appreciate your service as
you.
district lead nurse. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Eric?
This is timely after what Stacy talked about. So Eric, I think I shared with you a month or so ago, represented the district in a community forum on homelessness, and that kind of triggered a thought in my mind that it would be good for Eric to kind of give us the school homelessness 101 so that everybody kind of has a current understanding of the state of the district as it relates to this, and as he'll share, homelessness as defined for schools a little bit different than for communities and other entities as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. So the legislation that governs homeless education for students in K-12 schools, actually PK-12, is called the McKinney-Vento Act. It is federal legislation. It was reauthorized again as recently as 2018. It often gets reinterpreted as well, and it leads to some changes. But what McKinney-Vento does essentially is it provides access to services to students who are identified as homeless. So we do have students in Marshalltown who are at times living in cars, living in other places where you more traditionally think of homelessness as. But homelessness in the McKinney-Vento Act is also includes students who are estranged from their parental households if they're under 18. It includes students who may lose their housing due to eviction, a house fire, tornado, some kind of an event that makes their permanent residence uninhabitable. So there's a variety of rights that are associated with this. If you want to bounce to the next slide, Amy. So probably the most common right is that our students do qualify for transportation if they are relocated outside of their school zone. So for instance, if we have a student that is attending Franklin and living in the Franklin zone, but becomes homeless and ends up on the southeast side of town, for instance, that student would be eligible to go to their school of origin, which would be Franklin, or to their new neighborhood school, which would be, in that case, Hoagland. So in conjunction and in consultation with the family, we make a decision about what's best for the student. Most of our families prefer to stay in the school of origin where they came from. It's also less disruptive to the child's education. That district of origin, or that benefit extends to beyond school district boundaries as well. So if we have a family that is a Marshalltown family that ends up in Conrad, for instance, and they're homeless, they would have a right to choose for transportation to come to Marshalltown or to go to the BCLUW school district. So most of our Marshalltown families choose to remain in the Marshalltown school. So my really good friend Rex Kozak really has to scramble sometimes and work on these issues because they happen right now and the needs are pretty immediate. So Rex always seems to find a way to make it happen. Go to the next slide, please. Just to give you a sense of the scope of the problem, this problem in our community is following national trends, and it is growing quickly. We have more than 140 students that met McKinney-Vento criteria this year. This is the highest number that have ever been identified, and it exceeds the year of the tornado and the derecho. So there is a great deal of mobility and economic instability kind of as an undercurrent of what's going on. Next slide. So as I mentioned before, some of the rights I talked about, the transportation issue, access to free breakfast and lunch, and the one that kind of bumps into Stacy's work quite a bit is the right to immediate enrollment even when records aren't present.
Vaccinations, yeah.
So this is in federal legislation, so we have to kind of accommodate kids who sometimes come with little or nothing. So they don't come with a lot of records, or I dealt with a family that came from Indiana this year, and so I talked to the school in Indiana to request some records. They had only been in school in Indiana for 4 days. So that led me to their previous school in Kentucky. Then you start down the rabbit hole of chasing all these things down and trying to find some records that give you some degree of what the child's educational needs are. All these kids also qualify for Title I programs and Title I services, so they have the support for that academic success as well. Unaccompanied minors are also entitled to immediate enrollment. This is quite a different practice from before. We occasionally see 15 and 16-year-olds that will come into our school and say, I'm here, I'm staying with a friend, and I want to enroll in school. Well, years ago, we'd say, well, where are your parents? Do you have your parents' permission to be here? Do you have all these other questions we would ask? But those students actually, for their own safety now, are entitled to immediate enrollment. So somebody knows where they are. So we have fewer kids who might be victimized or human trafficked or something else would happen to them as they're waiting to get into school. Somebody then knows where they are and is able to support them. So the vast majority of our homeless kids are what we would call sharing housing or doubling up. It's where a family loses housing and then they move into housing with like a relative, and you then find, families with 4 adults and 7 children in a 2-bedroom place. So doubling up is a thing. Teenagers who are couch surfing, I guess, are also considered doubling up. We do find a lot of folks in our community do use some of the hotels in town too. So we have homeless in hotels, and sometimes that's a flag for our secretaries when that address change comes in, and it's to one of our hotels. That's a clue that we have some investigation to do. So a new definition for housing is now what's called inadequate housing. We have a number of families who claim that they live in inadequate housing, which then actually leads, like in the summertime, I have more time. I can go out and actually, and I look at the housing. And folks that are overcrowded, we have people who are living with no electricity, water, sewer services, a lot of those services that are cut off due to non-payment. In the wintertime, folks have access to those services, but generally around the 15th of April is when those services can be cut off. And so we have folks living in those situations too. So number of causes of homelessness, list those there. Those are on the next slide, please. We are seeing I think one of our causes of some of our increase in homelessness relates to some chronic poverty, but the recent inflation really hit a lot of families really hard. And we had a lot of families that were living on the margin and were living on the edge and kind of got tipped over the edge into that situation. We also see some abuse, neglect, and family dysfunction cases more at the secondary level, but those things tend to lead to the homelessness that we see. Wanted to talk about the impacts of homelessness, which is on the next slide. So a homeless youth is 87% more likely to drop out of school. Their social, emotional, and mental health wellness indicators are poorer than in the general population. So the statistics that are national statistics, a homeless youth is 4 times more likely to have a respiratory infection, twice as likely to have an ear infection as their age level peers, 4 times more likely to have asthma, 5 times more likely to experience gastrointestinal problems. All these transfers for these kids really interrupt their learning, and they do not have a contiguous, seamless educational program. The curricular alignment between schools and then the absences from the moves really add up over time and lead to lots of learning problems. A number of these kids suffer from chronic stress and acute stress and trauma due to their persistent economic difficulties and their life struggles. So I referred to unaccompanied youth. So those are youth, whether they left their home or chose to leave their home. You know, sometimes the kid says they got kicked out and the parent's like, no, they didn't get kicked out. But for a homeless, it really doesn't matter. If they're not living in the home and they're bouncing around town, then the federal law considers them homeless, that kind of situation. So the duration of homeless, if you're found to be homeless for 1 day during an academic year, you're homeless for that school year. The interesting thing about that 140 plus number that I shared with you before is come July 1, that number resets to 0. And we go all the way back through the identification process. It's a yearly identification for homelessness. So that's an every year kind of an identification process that I have to work through in my office. So something that came up this year that relates to refugee status. Our students and families that have refugee status that are fleeing the current war in the Ukraine or in countries where there's ongoing violent civil wars, Syria, South Sudan, Myanmar, for instance, they do not automatically qualify for McKinney-Vento status. If you could go to the next slide, please. So a refugee is not necessarily designated as homeless, but if they meet other criteria in the McKinney-Vento Act, they could be determined homeless. So if they come to Marshalltown and they live in a hotel for a week, or they are living somewhere where they don't have a legal right to be, which is oftentimes the litmus test that I have to use, then they may qualify for homeless. So, wanted to recognize the nonprofit partners in this work. because there's a lot of coordination behind the scenes to help folks get services. Our resource specialists and school counselors do a lot of work in this area too. I talked to Rex. Lynn Large has been great with her food service folks too. But these are places that we refer people and help people with. The referral process under McKinney-Vento is tricky because being homeless is an educational record, which makes it a matter of confidentiality. So we can lead people to these resources, but we can't directly refer them unless we have their permission. So getting them to make that connection sometimes is a little hard, and you got to do some hand-holding sometimes to get them there. So that's the work of the McKinney-Vento Act and what's going on in our schools. Any questions?
So Eric, when those red flags pop up, and it's probably most likely a secretary or maybe a counselor that identifies that, is the SRS then usually engaged to dig deeper into what the situation is and then it comes to you, or does it come to you right away?
Comes to me, it happens in all of those ways. Sometimes folks will come here to central office to register, or, when they go to our welcome center. Stacy Mommer is also very good at when she asks questions about, and then, we kind of dig into those situations. People don't like the word homeless at all, so we use the word internally, that you have McKinney-Vento status. Like, well, we have a home, I'm staying with my sister and her 4 kids, and, well, yes, you do have a home, but under our criteria, you are a McKinney-Vento eligible family and student, so it's a pretty sensitive topic. You got to tiptoe around it generally.
Yep.
Of the 140 students that you have identified, Eric, through the data, is there a way to track that to see if any of those families or those students have moved out of being eligible? I know that they get the services all year long because at least one day, but I'm just wondering, do we have a way to track to see what their status is over time?
The best way for me to know their status over time is like July 1 when this starts to come up again.
Good.
One of the things like that we especially try to do is we refer to the Bridge Home in Ames, which helps families with a program called Rapid Rehousing. So Rapid Rehousing will set them up in a place, maybe pay a month or 2 of rent and utilities and try to get them on their feet. We don't always know whether they maintain that after that referral happens and they get that service. I do have better information on kids who go into like independent living with YSS or something like that. But those opportunities, due to some funding cuts and stuff, are really pretty limited. There used to be more beds for that than what there are now, so.
So when July 1st hits, and you already have that 140 list, how do you touch back with those families, or do you touch back with the school to see if they were already stabilized in a home or?
Yeah, I'll start working with SRSs in August, and then, I know who those families are. I do have a couple of families that will reach out to me and say, hey, we are, this happened. And then sometimes, I learn about things like, hey, this family had a house fire, or you read that in the Times Republican, and then I reach out to the school and say, hey, what's going on with this family? Did they, is the Red Cross helping them? Or I do have a resource guide that I do push out to all of our SRSs and counselors that gives them some of the appropriate agency referrals for these students, so.
And sometimes as a teacher, the peers tell you. A child's friend will tell you what's going on.
Yeah, these referrals come kind of all over the place and from everywhere, and we do ask screening questions in the registration process. There's a series of 7 questions. If you register your students for school, you'll see like, do you have adequate housing? Do you, in the last 12 months, have you this or this or this? Those results filter over to me, so that's where I start kind of the process, which is a better answer to the question you asked for next year. People will say, they pretty readily tell you when they're doubled up, which is again about 70 to 75% of the referrals we get.
Do you know over time, Eric, like what percent falls off and versus what percent it continues year after year to qualify for this status?
I've only done this job a couple of years, so there have not been a lot of repeaters. What I do find is if there's a teenager who's in crisis, like in 9th grade and is out of the house and out of the community and stuff like that, that situation usually doesn't resolve itself. We do have families who are homeless for a short time and then get that assistance from the Bridge Home and then, kind of get back on their feet a little bit. The numbers are rising though, which is sort of the disturbing trend, I guess. And I've worked with people who have said to me, I never thought this would be me. I had a good job, my wife had a good job, and then things just kind of fall apart on them, so.
What was the number last year-ish?
It was about 105, 110,
Okay,
so.
so that is a significant increase.
Yeah. I think in the tornado year, I believe it was like 96, 98.
Any other questions? Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
I do have one more question. Eric, is there anything you need from us?
No, we're trying to get the work done. The folks in the system, we've done a lot of professional development around awareness through the school staff. So all of our teachers get a brief homeless overview training in the fall when they do that series of trainings we do as employees every year. So I'm starting to now just getting those little emails like you mentioned, Jan, like, hey, somebody told me that, this, and then we go in and check it out, so. But I'll keep that in mind, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Karina?
Hello, and thank you for having us. So here I have with me, Karina Hernandez, you know who I am. Terry Busby, he is the president for our board, for our MEP board, which is our Marshalltown Education Partnership Program, and I'll let him start off.
I'll kick it off. Good. Karina's going to do the heavy lifting. I'm just going to do a little kickoff and maybe the ending. But first, I want to start by, I know most everybody at the school board, I want to thank you guys for everything you do. Huge for Marshalltown, foundational, and you guys are making a big difference, and much appreciate that. Hopefully you hear that from others as well. So we're going to talk about the MEP program, and this all began, it may have been around Bonnie's time, in 2002, so it's quite a ways back now. We had a Fisher and MHS partnership, and we were discussing about the demographic change and exactly what we need to do further to really provide the workforce here locally in Marshalltown. Following that 2002, we actually awarded our first scholarships to first generation family members in 2006. And so we're going to give you a really nice update as to where that is today. I would say the thing I'd ask you to listen for is we definitely measure ourselves on scholarships and receipt of those scholarships, but I would tell you that the activities and the events and the resources that we put toward not just scholars, but a bigger number than that is very significant. And so we try to drive success beyond just what we measure inside of this MEP program. I do want to quickly recognize the other board members. Luis Mesa is probably our rock star of, he was actually a MEP student, now he's an engineer at Emerson, which is very cool. Matt Tebow is the CFO of Emerson, he's on our board. Heidi DeLaw from the North Ellen Tye organization, Sherry King from Unity Point, Abigail Healers from Brown and Wintage, and then we always have a JBS representative right now that we have, we're finding that new person there. And then from MCC, Robin Lindenthal and Nate Shua, and then Rebecca Whalen, Jackie Wyatt, and Theron all participate in this as well. Karina is our 5th coordinator of MEP. So over about an 18-year period, she's number 5, and I can tell you, I think she's been around 6 months now and has really hit the ground running. I think you're going to really see that this program is alive and well, and there's even more to be done. So have at it.
Yeah, thank you. So our mission for MEP, we did change it a little bit this year. So the Marshtown MEP program is dedicated to students attending post-secondary education without financial barriers. MEP is doing its part in contributing to Marshtown's economic development efforts. Our goal is to help students sustain Marshalltown as a best-in-class community. So our goals are students will enroll in a post-secondary institution. MEP students attending MCC will complete either a certificate or an associate's degree, and that includes also a diploma. And then students will meet MEP scholarship requirements. So the MEP program in general, it is offered for students 9th to 12th grade. It is a college access program in collaboration with the Marshtown School District and the Marshtown Community College. It provides programming to students to participate in a variety of activities to pursue a post-secondary education. And that includes helping with barriers and challenges to graduate high school, and also with the transition to college or a post-secondary institution. And as you can see, it's in that little cloud. We do offer many activities and events that our kids are invited to. One of them is building skills and academic support. My job at MCC, as I am hired through MCC, is also providing these services at MHS. So I am there 3 days a week, providing those services, and then 2 days a week at MCC, providing advising services to students who attend MCC after graduation. So students, like I said, we provide services to students from 9th to senior year, so 4 years. Students are recruited through their second semester of 8th grade and first semester of 9th grade. The students that we serve are first-generation students, meaning that neither parents have a 4-year degree. Students who demonstrate financial need, and again, 9th to 12th grade. So they do have to commit to 4 years of high school to the MEP program to participate in either small groups, events, or any activities being held. We usually serve about 300 to 400 students at MHS, and that's not including students that we serve as advisor at MCC, which can go up to 50 students or more. Through their 4 years of service with the MEP program, not only we're providing activities for them to be ready for a post-secondary education, career planning, and then just to have their head on board as far as what they want to do after graduation. We also provide them with the information that during senior year, they can apply for a scholarship with MEP. The MEP provides 50% of their tuition paid, so it's tuition and fees at MCC with a maximum of 64 credits for up to 36 months. This tuition can be used for either a certificate, diploma, or an associate's degree to transfer to a four-year college. In order to be eligible for this scholarship, they have to be MEP seniors, have to have a 2.75 GPA or be top rank of their class, the top half, and then maintain a 90% attendance rate at MHS, and also write essay about themselves, talking about either their barriers or goals, and then their plans after graduation. And then also include what did MEP do to help create those plans or help with those barriers or challenges that they had throughout college. Now, this information is provided to students, again, during their 9th grade, so they know ahead of time what a GPA is, they know how to track their attendance, so in order for them to be able to apply for this scholarship. When they do get the scholarship, if they do, when they get to MCC, like I said earlier, they do get services at MCC as an academic advisor, transfer guidance, and then also college visits. Students who don't plan to attend MCC but still meet the criteria, they are welcome to apply for the scholarship because there is life changes, and there has happened already in my over 6 months on the job where students do plan to go to a university but come back due to life changes or whatever happens. They come back to MCC and then they have the scholarship in their pocket and they're able to utilize it. We also have students who go out to a four-year university and attend MCC before they leave, right after graduation to take some summer courses, or they come back during the summer and take summer courses when they're here for a cheaper price, plus the additional 50% of half off of their tuition. So that's great. So an average amount that we provide as scholarship a year per student is $1,565. That is the average scholarship amount a year per student who attends NCC full-time.
Karina, is the initial touch in middle school? Where
Yes.
you're recruiting?
Yep, so it's the second semester of 8th grade is the recruitment strategy. Comes into place, and then the full recruitment would be 9th grade with already having some on board since 8th grade. So some of them are able to start right away at the beginning of 9th grade. So this year, a little bit of data on this year, the total enrollment with MHS and MLA together, 9th through 12th grade, we had 305 students. And then at MCC, we had 29 students. We awarded 27 students with the MEP scholarship, with 78% planning to go to MCC. And when I say planning, they've registered for classes, they've did their application. The other 6 had other plans. One is moving out of the country. 2 actually are science-bound students who are taking the opportunity to go to Iowa State and then another college, but plan to come back and do some summer courses. And then we had 2 who actually are taking part of our district opportunity to become for teachers. So they're new Governor University opportunities. So we have 2 of those. So, good luck to them. That's great for them. So we do have, out of this year, we had 101 seniors in the MEP program, and out of those 101, we had 68% with post-secondary education plans, either with doing a trade at MCC, going to a four-year university, or coming to MCC for an AA degree or a diploma or a certificate of some sort. So that is our year to date for the 2023 school year. And then the MEP impact that we've done to date. Do you want to go over that? Do you want me to?
Go have at it.
Okay, so MEP has awarded over $1 million in scholarships since 2006. Has awarded 317 scholarships to first-generation college students to attend MCC. 222 have graduated with either a diploma, certificate, or an associate's degree. And then we served over 4,800 students that we mentored through 9th through 12th grade at MHS.
I guess I just highlight that while I just make the point, the scholarships are really cool, the dollar's a big number, But when you think about 4,864 students that have been touched inside the MEP program and had an impact, I think that's, like I say, trying to make it representative of bigger impact than just financial aid. There's a lot of other intangibles that come into play here.
Definitely.
So these scholarships are for MCC, but if they go to a four-year school and they come back in the summer and take a couple classes at MCC, they can use it
Yep.
for the MCC.
So that
classes.
scholarship continues to be in their pocket for at least 3 years,
Okay.
36 months for them to utilize.
To use that.
So then we have some scholars who have their testimony, and what my target is to kind of look through the alumni for MEP and see what we still have here in Marshalltown, students who have gone out and graduated from MCC, transferred to a university, or received some type of certificate or diploma and stayed in Marshalltown. We have our very own Marshalltown City Planner, Hector Hernandez, who graduated from MCC 2018. He is also our city planner. He went to Iowa State University. And then we have Suhey Hernandez. She's also a 2017 graduate from MCC. She's an SRS at Rogers Elementary. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Elizabeth Drazy, because I didn't add this to the PowerPoint, but Elizabeth Drazy is one of our scholars last year who received the MEP scholarship, but she also received the Rex Ryden scholarship, which is something that I missed to put on this one of these slides. But the Rex Ryden scholarship is a scholarship provided to students who have any community service or volunteer work in our community, and they can write that during their essay portion, and they are selected by the board to receive the Rex Ryden scholarships on top of the MEP scholarship, which creates a full ride to MCC. And that's Elizabeth Drazy, and she graduated last year for 2022. Do you want to explain a little bit what Rex Ryden is?
Well, everybody knows
Okay.
Rex's role in the community, and he was on the MEP board for many, many years. So it was something the Thai Foundation wanted to add in addition to the MEP scholarship. So somebody can, every year we award
At least
a
one.
potential full scholarship. So it's very cool.
And then here's another one. We have our very own Gabby. She also is a MEP a scholar who graduated in 2010, gave us our testimony. She received her AA degree and her Microsoft Office Specialist certificate, and now is going through the new Governor University as well to become a teacher. So we're very happy for her. And then here's our milestone.
So I'll be brief, but this is the 16-year history. Obviously, crossed over the $1 million mark, which is a big number. But I'd recognize that, again, it started this conversation. We actually went to San Antonio that had a similar partnership with First Generation. We learned from them. We had some great founding board members that I'll highlight for you that started the funding to allow us to begin the early recruitment as early as 2006. And then we went after, in 2007, a pretty serious fundraising. I think we collected somewhere in the $800,000 range there that's really funded this program for that time. So we're just about to the point. So awarding $1 million is a great thing. I think the 300 scholars is awesome, but again, I would comment that the broader touch is something that we really want to make sure people have an understanding of that value. Next slide is just to highlight that these are the founding sponsors. I would probably put gold stars next to Emerson and Martha Ellen Ty as far as their serious financial contribution. Others as well, but those guys are the gold. The other would be in the silver category, with the exception of Marshalltown with Iowa Valley, and recognize that the 50% of the scholarship, half of that 50% is Iowa Valley funded, and the other half is funded by the greater community this way. So my job now, and I'd like to make this maybe my parting act relative to MEP, but we're going to begin to make the rounds to some of these founding sponsors, find what kind of, really, truly, what we just did, present to them, see if they think there was a value creation that they want to support again, and we're going to try to get the funds that would really hopefully keep this evergreen for many years to come. So I think it's had a great impact, a lot of great success stories. Karina's done a great job of identifying more of those success stories than we've had. I think we've got them sprinkled, quite honestly, all over the community that way. But again, MEP is a great thing. I appreciate the support that we get from the school system here, and we're going to go and hopefully gather more support from our sponsors around the community. That's what we have.
Yeah, any questions?
Karina, how much gets awarded annually, would you say?
Say it again, Theron.
How much is typically awarded annually? Like when
As far as
27?
money?
Yeah,
In
like-
the
So this
880,
past,
what'd you say?
so by semester right now, it would be about 40 to 44,000 a year.
80 to 90 grand a year.
A year. Mhm.
It's about what that is, yeah. So, it's alive and well, we got to keep it that way. And again, I would give Karina a lot of credit. I think her integration into this thing has been awesome, and I think that we have some real momentum to go get some players to support us going forward here. But anything you guys can do to spread the word would be helpful, obviously.
For fundraising?
Okay?
Well, I honestly can't remember. It seems like when I was a teacher here that we could have the option of having that taken out of our check and put in the scholarship program. Does that sound right?
Well, we just added that last year for the first time, and so this fall, when we do the welcome back, Karina's going to do a short pitch, just like the United Way does to our district employees, but I'm not aware of it. I mean, it may have been an option, but for some reason it wasn't when I came in 2016.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, the other comment, we mentioned $1,500 average, but, quite honestly, when you marry Pell Grants and this scholarship, we have most of these students are going to MCC for no dollars, and I think that's a very powerful statement. Okay?
Well,
Good.
good luck with your fundraising, especially with teachers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am here with Julie Thede. She is our professional development leader, and she oversees our mentoring program. I don't know if you remember, we were here in the fall, and she shared a lot of details about the work that she does with our new teachers, and not only new teachers to the profession, but new teachers to Marshalltown. And Julie and I have been talking about a mentoring and induction handbook for probably about 18 months. She's done a lot of research and just kind of looking around to see what other districts have, but really looking to put this in the hands of our new teachers as a guide for them to know what to expect for support that they have here in the district. And Julie's here to help just kind of walk you through some of the details.
Right, so just wanting to present it to you as a new handbook. The details that are in here really aren't new. Like these are all things that we've had set with our mentoring program, but now it's just bringing it together into a handbook so that it's an easy way for new staff, for mentors, for any leaders that are supporting new staff to find all those details. So it starts out at the beginning kind of just giving the purpose and rationale. It goes through what the Iowa Department of Ed is saying that we must do for beginning teachers, how we serve them and guide them through that initial license phase. It talks about our goals then, how are we meeting what the Department of Ed is saying that we need to do. It outlines expectations and pathways for the teachers that we have coming to us, whether they are on an initial license or they're on a standard or a master teacher license, but they're just new to Marshalltown. And then it walks through how we select mentors, what their job entails. It walks through the Iowa teaching standards and criteria, which is what the state says that our teachers need to be proficient in to be effective teachers. It also talks about NIET instructional framework, which is kind of our roadmap for how you can meet those 8 Iowa teaching standards. And then also those roles for the leaders that are supporting our new teachers. So myself as a CPDL, our mentors, our instructional coaches, and our principals, how we're supporting new teachers. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Any questions or comments about how it's laid out?
So then are you responsible for keeping this up to date?
I think I
Yes.
It's good, but there's a lot of information in
Yeah,
here.
there's a lot of
And as I'm
information.
going through this, I'm like, some of these things you're going to want to change or update on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, I think. And the way that I look, I know this is discussion and we come back for approval, or I will come back for approval. I think we'll loop it into the way that we operate with our other handbooks as well. So if we foresee changes, we'll highlight those, you'll be able to review them and then approve them.
I think it's we've been blessed to have had a great program and at least 3 different leaders of the program in the 7 years that I've been here. But I think by having this handbook, it will further guarantee the sustaining of the quality work that this program and support that this program provides our newest teachers.
So when I was going through and looking at the difference between year 1 and year 2, with the 6 observation cycles, so 4 of them are with the mentor teacher who has been assigned, and then 2 with the instructional coach. That's on top of a building administrator going in and doing observations also.
Yes.
Yes. So
Okay.
those 6 that are happening are not evaluative.
Correct.
So those are all
Correct.
just growth opportunities for them. And then the administrator would come in as the evaluator.
Yep, okay.
That layering in the instructional coach, the 2 instructional coaching cycles or observations is actually somewhat new in the last 2 years. It used to be that it was really only the mentor who did that work with the mentee. And we're really wanting to carve out that relationship from the very onset of that teacher working in our buildings with the instructional coach as well. So you're doubling the support that you have for that teacher on site that's not an evaluative support.
Well, that's important because it gets them more comfortable with working with instructional coaches.
Yes, and I believe we've had some great feedback, and the relationship that builds and the trust and understanding of the knowledge of the instructional coach that can support that new teacher.
Right. And then that's an ongoing relationship that after mentoring is over, they're still going to be able to lean on that instructional coach.
It's nice to set the conditions of not teaching in a silo, but teaching as a team and gathering ideas and sharing thoughts. And, we want our kids to be lifelong learners. We also want our staff to be lifelong learners. And with that, this is just another opportunity to be a lifelong learner. So it's nicely done.
So how do you work the schedules, because the mentor teachers are also teaching in the same buildings generally? Okay, so how do they work their schedules so that this actually happens?
So they're using either a planning period to do that observation, or they're asking an instructional coach maybe to cover for them so they can be released from their classroom. So kind of some different ways, but it's within those ideas that they're figuring out how they can make that happen.
Okay.
They can also video record. So sometimes they'll video record the lesson, the mentor would watch it later.
Okay, or they could watch it together.
Or they could watch it together.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is especially easy at Lenahan and will be very easy at the high school.
I was just thinking that. I was just saying.
Any other questions for us?
No, I like that it's written down.
We do too. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your work.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a lot.
Shauna, don't go away.
Okay, back again. I know Jen O'Neill and I presented the 7th and 8th grade science adoption through Activate Learning, and I would love to propose an approval for I think it's 97,000. If you keep scrolling, Amy, we can get, approximately 97,000 there. It's a 6-year licensure for us to be able to implement those materials at Miller, 7th and 8th grade for all the teachers and students. I can also answer any questions that you might have.
Was there some discussion previously about waiting because the curriculum to yet be developed? Have they moved any further with that?
For 9 through 12?
Uh-huh.
So this is really interesting. I'm really proud of the fact that we decided to push hold for our 9 through 12. On June 5th, we had our meeting, and we discussed with you the 7th and 8th grade. On June 6th, edreports.org, which is really widely known for a nonprofit organization that reviews high-quality curriculum and essentially tells you whether or not you're standard aligned. And one of the products that we were looking at scored really low on June 6th for the high school level. And we were just proud that our process figured that out as well, and that we weren't ready to move forward, but also it could have been a lot harder to try to defend a decision if we were to have moved forward knowing that we hadn't found what we were looking for, and kind of pigeonholed ourselves into making a decision. So right now, we're on hold. We're going to wait to see what Open SciEd is able to develop. And we're hoping that these other vendors are able to take that and really package it like Activate Learning has been able to do. But that decision really will have to have a lot of collaboration with our high school teachers. And we know that those high school science teachers, not only them, but the CTE teachers as well, are going to be really excited and focused on the renovations that are coming. So we've already worked with the current Midvisa Voss, Pearson, and McGraw-Hill for the 9 through 12 to continue for one more year using what they have so that this Open SciEd can catch up. So that's why when you look at this purchase, it's really a 7-8 purchase only.
Right, and that was going to be my question, is we're not adopting 7-12, we're really adopting 7-8, right?
Correct. Yeah, the presentation, the whole process was 7-12, inclusive of the
Right.
high school. We just are requesting to approve the 7 and 8 materials.
And I noticed you have 6.2, 6.3. Did you choose specific units from that level, or?
Can you clarify that question, Jan? I'm
Okay,
not
it's
sure what you're
on,
asking.
Their classroom kits.
their classroom kits. Okay, and so the number doesn't correspond with the grade level?
No, those are more units that
Okay.
you're looking at there.
All right. That was my question. So it's 7 and 8.
They
and-
have all of that organized. Okay, so Jan, I don't know how familiar you are with the NGSS standards, but in
Okay.
Iowa, they've instead of the grade band of 6 through 8,
Right.
they've assigned them to grades.
Okay.
So when you see those units, it appears like we would be purchasing a 6th grade unit. We're not, we're purchasing the unit that aligns to the Iowa standards for 7th and 8th
7th and
grade.
8th, okay.
Yep.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But in other states, they're not aligned to a specific grade. It's a grade band. So if I'm
Right.
an 8th grade teacher, I might be able to teach what Iowa considers a 6th grade standard.
Right.
Iowa is really good at making things complicated.
Are there any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the 7th and 8th grade science curriculum as presented?
Move to approve.
Second.
Lowry, Stanley, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shauna.
So although it feels like we just survived the last legislative session, it's time to start thinking about the next one. As you know, ISB does an all-call of school boards from across the state, starting in late May, early June, and then with, I think their deadline this year is around August 4th of wanting district boards to submit what they believe their priorities are based on their locale, and then from those submissions, they develop a platform, a prioritized platform for which they use to advocate for public education. So we've included here this past year's legislative priorities, many of which you can make a strong argument are still very relevant. The first one, which is advocacy for continued support and prioritization of public education. Obviously, this one came to the forefront as a result of the ESAs. But I think there still may be a desire to seek some equity as it results to accountability of all entities that receive public funds for schooling purposes. So, that one may not weigh as heavily as in the past, but it's still somewhat relevant. The school funding, supplemental state aid, both of those are extremely important, obviously, for our district finances. 3%, which the state awarded us this past year in state supplemental aid, was the highest aid that we've received in the past 14 years. Prior to this year, it's been anywhere from 0 to 2.5, I think. And more often on the lower end of that, the 2 to less than 2, and, was still somewhat unknowns as to what the property tax changes in legislation, what that will look like for public schools is probably still a little bit unknown. I don't think that it's going to be as detrimental for us as maybe what the city and some other entities are looking at, but there's still time will tell in terms of what kind of overall impact that has for us. With mental health, obviously, still a very deep need for both youth and adult mental health in the state, and achievement gap also. Whether it was gaps that existed prior to the pandemic or that were further amplified through the pandemic, there's still, I think, a need for emphasis there, because it's going to be many years before we see, I think, that gap get reduced and or eliminated in a significant way across the country and state. The other thing that I would encourage you to think about, and it was on our radar last year, was something related to help and support with the staffing shortages that we've got. But the other document, which is included, has a longer list of possibilities, and what I would recommend is that you peruse that list and then share with Sean or Sarah or I if you think any of the other topics that we have not listed should be given consideration as being a top priority. We had 5 here that we identified as a district. We can only submit 4, so it is kind of important to try to prioritize them in that sense. But the way ISB responded with those is that they provide a platform of more than 4. So I think it's good for us to submit what we truly believe are the top priorities that should be focused on. But this was mainly for your information. Our hopes would be to have recommendations to put before you at the July 10th meeting to act on, so that we can then get those forwarded to the Iowa Association of School Boards.
Did anybody have anything that they want to talk about or jumped out to them this evening?
I just had a question on your school funding policy. It says supports the school foundation formula that equalizes per pupil funding for all program areas. Can you explain what you were talking about with that, or what you're thinking of?
Well, this is language from the Iowa Association of School Boards, but I think that what they're talking about there, and Randy, you can help me with this, is equity and per pupil assessment. There still are opportunities for inequities based on language that existed like back in the 70s, where some districts locally determined that their publics would be taxed a little bit more in order to have more per pupil amount than what the state averages, which the state has been trying to equalize over time. Mm-hmm. They've been trying to do similar efforts with transportation costs, because transportation is a general fund cost, which obviously is inequitable if they're given the same amount of money for districts that have very little transportation per student versus those that
Okay, I've read about that.
cover a large span. So,
Well, and I think there are some states that'll take property tax, and in your wealthier districts, they collect a lot more property tax. But then they're taking that property tax and they're equally distributing it throughout the state, so that your per pupil costs are more equalized among districts. And I was wondering if that's where you were going with it, but you're talking about the transportation I've read about in the paper.
Yeah, transportation and per pupil allocations, but Randy, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Short answer would be the district cost per pupil amongst districts in the entire state is not the same.
Right.
So some are higher, some are lower than the state cost per pupil. So that's what that is. It's to make adjustments over time to the school finance formula to make the cost per pupil across the state the same.
Okay.
And they have been making strides, both with per pupil and transportation up until this last legislative session. But I don't believe they acted on it
Yeah, this last
year.
session was the first time, I believe, in 4 or 5 years that they didn't do anything to address that gap because they were doing it incrementally over time.
Okay. Hi, Lynn.
Hello.
Must be time to raise meal prices.
Just one. So hopefully we can get through this quickly. So because the district is fully enrolled into the community eligibility program as of the 23 school year, meals for students will continue to be no cost next year. The only price we have to talk about today is adult price meals, specifically lunch. And we do need to increase that to be compliant with the USDA requirements. So the reason of that is that we can't collect reimbursement or use our planned assistant level money to offset the cost of adult meals. So we do need to raise that to a minimum of $4.84 for next school year, which is what I'm recommending that we do.
Any questions?
I was looking back over your 10-year chart, a whole $1 in 10 years. Amazing. That's what the adult price for lunch has increased over 10 years, is $1.
Yeah, you tell me where for $4.84 you can get.
A decent meal. It's actually a pretty good price.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like to take care of our staff too, so hopefully they enjoy eating with us.
Absolutely.
Is there a motion to approve the increase of adult meal prices to $4.84 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
McGinnis Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Is it a new policy if a kid brings their lunch to school that they have to buy the milk?
So when a student makes an à la carte purchase, which is a single item purchase, they do have to pay for that. So the community eligibility provision provides meals to students, but it does not cover single purchases. So if a student brings a meal from home, they would need to purchase a milk if they would like milk to drink with their meal. Or we could offer them the minimum requirements to meet the reimbursable meal guidelines, which is what we do, a fruit and a vegetable with the milk. And then we kind of just consider it like a bonus for any food items they also brought from home. So there's a couple different ways we could approach that.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna sit here with Rex for a minute.
Hi, Rex.
Hi. Thank you for putting us on the agenda. The last 2 years, we've been looking at the food service truck. We bought it in 2014. It has served the district well. It's got over 90-some thousand miles on it, pretty much all in-town miles. And if you know diesel engines and in-town miles, they are not good things. But trying to find a truck that meets our needs has been a challenge because we have to have our ramps at our 94, our loading docks are at 44 inches up. So they have to raise that bed up and that bumper up to get it up there to where that will lay flat so they're not pushing uphill or trying to hold the cart rolling downhill. So we sent out for 7 different vendors. We got the first time around, we got no bids back. Then we got 1 bid back, and they weren't anywhere close to what we needed. And then finally, we got 2 of them. And we're recommending to you, the 2 that we got were from Greg Young and then from O'Halloran down in Altoona. We're recommending the Greg Young for 92. Their actual was 117, but with the trade-in of our current truck, brought it down to 92, 913. And this funding would come out of Pebble, is how we would pay for that. Have anything you want to add?
Is this part of like your regular replacement cycle, Rex?
Yeah, it's in the small vehicle replacement cycle, and we've been working on, it was in the 24, 25, one of those two, and it happened, we're putting it in the 24 fiscal year, moving it up 1 year based on what we dealt with this year with the food service truck. But it's probably not going to, depending on when they can get it built, we probably won't see it until summer of 24, going into July 1st of 24, just depending on who they can get into the build queue.
So what were some of the issues that you've been facing with the current truck?
Oh, we had the cabin floor rusted out that we had to re-metal sheet over. We had numerous spring issues, airbag issues, the converter issue. Oil leaking. It was a daily call from Lynn saying, there's a problem with the truck. A daily call.
We love that truck. It's done really well for us, but we don't want to push our luck.
And you use the truck to do what?
We deliver
daily?
meals around the district in the truck. So we have 3 production sites that we produce meals at, and then we take meals from those locations out to the elementaries and then, run things between buildings using the truck. So it's quite the operation. Like we have, warm shippers that we load all the meals into, pans food, keep them hot, strap them into the truck, take them across town, unload them. Then we go back around and pick everything back up.
And that happens all year round. I mean, there's no downtime for our food service. So her and I worried all year that this truck was going to not make it. We're hoping it makes one more year when we get our new one. So we just keep it going very nicely.
Any other questions? Now, is there a motion to approve the purchase of a food service truck in the amount of $92,913 from Greg Young Automotive Group, and with the trade-in of the current 2014 vehicle as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Wall, Lowry, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, I get to do the next one too. Working on safety and security on our buses. This past year, we had 3 vehicles pass on our right side of our vehicles. One on Highway 14, that's the boarding side. One on Highway 14, the semi went barreling around our bus. Then we had 2 here in town. Where on we just didn't have clarity of those license plates to get them. And so looking at that and talking with Randy, we're recommending 12 camera systems, which would be 8 cameras. And they would be 4 in the cabin, which shoots right down into our seats. Then there would be one on the dashboard that shoots directly ahead and directly, see the aisle and straight ahead. And then on the outside, there would be one on the door side, boarding side, and then 2 on the passenger side. One catching license plates coming at you, and the other one right under the stop arm, catching them go this way. We were averaging 5 traffic violations, stop arm violations this spring alone. Almost every day I was calling with 2 to 3 violations of stop arm. And because we have our video, we had right at a 97 conviction rate on our plates. It's nothing to be proud of, but we're working well with the police department trying to get this to stop. We've had them, like up in Albion, we were able to get cars tearing through and passing our buses up there. So those cameras that we're asking for there, for the $51,627.84 would match our current cameras that we have, but we're just getting now, a lot of our buses, we have 4, 5, 6 on there where we have 4 inside and then 1 on the driver's side and 1 on the passenger side. And the passenger side ones are really important because when we get a complaint about something happening at a stop area, we see it as we're approaching with that bus. And we can see behaviors and we can deal with those rather quickly of what's going on because we know we got the video and we can get the parents on board and get that cleaned up at some of those stops. So that's the first one. Then the next one is the Samsara dual-facing cameras. We've been demoing those since February in our smaller vehicles. This is one thing that we've talked about for probably a year and a half of trying to find a good quality camera inside our small vehicles, our vans, our trucks, and this will have the GPS. So we can see where all our vehicles are, and we will be able to also see what's going on in front of it, as well as what's going on inside the cabin. We had, the ones we used this year were fantastic. We had to deal with some behavioral issues with some kids in a van, and we were able to get on board and everybody involved quickly because I got a copy of the video and we got the parent involved in helping get the child's behavior under control to where we could transport them safely. So we wanted to put those in all the vehicles the district owns, B&Gs as well as food service. So every vehicle that we own would have the dual-facing camera in there so we can see what's going on, and if there's a situation, we have it covered. And then that would be the $17,916 to begin, and then it's annual renewal because we will not own those cameras. If we ever leave them, the cameras go back. We're not buying the cameras with this. We just are basically leasing those cameras in those small vehicles. So if something comes different that we want to change them, we'll be able to change them easily without a lot of extra expense there. Then the last thing is moving ourselves forward. We're looking at purchasing tablets, Samsung tablets in our buses. So when we have a driver, Nora will come in and drive for us, we can hand her a tablet. She will be able to pull up that route and put it on that bus, and we'll have all the routes there, whichever one she's assigned to. She can put it down there, and it'll guide her just like a GPS would. And when she comes, it would shut down, and just talk to her, and then as she approaches that stop, it will light up, and it will also, we'll have the names of the kids getting on or the kids getting off. So it's moving us towards piloting and doing where we are taking attendance of kids who's on the bus and kids where they got off, which will go along with our Stop Finder app that we have that parents can track their kids. But we want to start small. To equip all our buses is not the way I want to go. I want to get a few drivers trained as we do this and make sure it's all working well, and then slowly bring the rest on as we go along on that. And we'll probably hold like 6 tablets back for our sub-drivers and take 4 tablets and either identify probably a school and use that and make sure we can work through how we do that. And this has been one thing Theron and I have talked about previously about who's on buses, how do we know, did they get on, did they get off? And we're getting a lot better. We don't get the calls, my kid's missing, where's my kid? That's cutting down, because the parents are using the Stop Finder app and they know if they're on the bus or what's going on. So we're doing the right things and we're doing them at the right speed. We're not overwhelming everybody, but we're getting there. So, and that there.
Oh, go ahead, I was going to add something when you're done.
Okay. We're looking at that for those tablets of $22,000 and then the renewal with that as well. But we think as a district, and we have safety and everything else of our kids and everything, we think these 3 things, addition to our transportation, will keep us moving forward and keeping everybody safe.
I was just going to add, Rex will call me obviously when desperate to come drive, and I am directionally challenged, I think we can
We can
say,
say
and
that.
so I can only drive a route if there's a monitor on that bus so that the monitor can say, okay, now go left, now go right. And so, for somebody like me who doesn't drive often, it's pretty limiting. With something like this, the substitutes don't have to be as concerned about what route they're being assigned to. There's less of I guess, anxiety, and now it opens up, the door to having our subs do even more routes than the other ones that they're familiar with, so that now I can help with routes that don't have a monitor. So I think it's an exciting trial. I'm excited to test it out for you.
And the other thing that these cameras will do is they'll begin the layover with our current routing system. So we plan a route and we're going to be able to see what the driver's actually doing. So we can then match the route up with where if the driver changes because of this or that, we can do that. Which is then when we get the new students added to the school district, we have a more accurate time of what time they'll be arriving. So if you ever get a chance, come down, we'll show you what we do, because we track all our buses, we know where they're at, we know everything. If you want to see the full operation, just come down someday and we can show you. We can find any of our buses, and now if we approve the dash cams and stuff, any vehicle in the district we'll be able to find and locate instantly.
So Rex, since the district doesn't own the cameras that we're talking about, the company that we would be leasing these from, do they take care of regular maintenance and repairs?
Yeah,
Or is that our
Samsara, if I got to change one out, they'll just send me an exchange one for anything. All we do is just monitor that they're recording correctly, because it's gone into a cloud, and that's only lasts there for 30 days, so I need to download anything, then we have it. Otherwise, it's gone. They just dispose, do it. Yeah, so they take care of any of that, and if I'm having technical things, I don't have to call our IT. I just call them and we work through it.
So Rex, just for clarity, item 1, the 12 REI cameras, and item 3, the 10 Samsung tablets, those we're purchasing. And then the 24 Samsara dual-facing dash cams we're leasing, not purchasing, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Any other questions?
So the stuff we're purchasing, as you're going through the cycles on the buses, you can easily move them to the new buses.
Yeah, what we've been doing, we've been buying for a year. So when we get our new buses, we put the new ones on them, and then our buses we're getting rid of, we pull those cameras off and add them to older bus. So we just kind of keep increasing. And some of them that are Seon cameras, we've been moving on out because they're getting outdated and tough to maintain and keep alive. So we do use what we can use, and then if some camera goes down on us, then we have backups that we can put right up there real quick.
So Rex, does every bus today have either the 6-camera system or this 8-camera system that you're talking about putting on there?
Well, no. A lot of them have just 2 cameras. So those will be the ones that these 8-camera systems will be going on those, so we can get better look into those seats of what's going on.
After this 12, then
We still have.
how many more only have the 2-camera system?
After this, all the 2-camera systems will be done. Then we'll start looking at the cameras that just have the one outside camera and how we can improve that. So where I'm at right now is reevaluating where we're at, where are we going, and what do we need to enhance, and looking at the market of what's out there to make sure we're headed in the right direction.
I think, Leo, so correct me if I'm wrong, but how many more buses will we potentially need to outfit with cameras?
4. Right now, 4.
After these?
After these, yep. But with the couple buses that we're going to be phasing out, I think I can get those covered, because we don't use them that much just when we have to have a spare. So I'm not really overly jumping on putting on the nice cameras on spare buses.
On the last 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
So are those last 4 used more for activities or?
No, they're used for spares. When we have a breakdown, we got to take a bus offline, we got a quick bus. So if they have 2 cameras, I still can see what's going on, but I don't believe I would recommend to you the urgency of putting them on since we don't use them on a daily basis.
Okay.
Anything else? I would just say from a technology standpoint, where the transportation department is now compared to where they were, I don't know, Rex, when did you start?
2017.
Yeah, it's leaps and bounds from where you were in 2017, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, there's absolutely no comparison what we do today compared to then.
Yeah.
Because right now, I have all the routing done for rural route. I'm just waiting for registration of parents say yes or no. Because on our routing now, when they register, they have to go in and say yes, they want transportation or no, and that pops right up on our screen. And then we can either move kids onto buses, off of buses, and get our routes cleaned up. We just sent out our walk letters. All the kids going in 5th grade, 7th grade, and 9th grade, we sent out a notification to those parents today that their child is in walk. So our software is helping us get ahead of the game versus wait until registration and catching parents off guard. They know now. They're getting their letters, and we are moving through the buildings quickly, getting everybody assigned, and then it's just when registration starts, it'll be so much easier for us. And then all the schools have access through Viewfinder that we got, and they can look up their kids instantly and see what buses or what's going on with them at any time.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the purchase of cameras and tablets to be used in small vehicles and buses as presented.
Move for approval.
Second.
Hernandez, Stanley, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rex. Hi, Eric.
Oh.
School Safety and Security Coordinator.
Yes, Eric Whedon,
Eric
School
Whedon.
Safety and School.
I remembered your title tonight, so I wanted to say it.
Thank you for your time. So tonight I'd like to talk to you guys about various safety projects that we have throughout the district. Right now, about a year ago, the governor created the School Safety Initiative, the School Safety Bureau, and allocated $50,000 to each school in the state of Iowa that was willing to do a vulnerability study. And part of that vulnerability study, there were areas that were identified as vulnerabilities related to school safety. So what I'd like to talk to you tonight about are specific vulnerabilities that we would like to take care of and using that $50,000. So what I've done is I've broke the each school down. Do you have that, Amy? Are you able to? So I'd like to start with Anson. The emergency radios, there was emergency radio that was placed in every school. The radio itself was free, however, there was a $500 installation fee. And so what we're asking for is that installation be reimbursed through this $50,000. The exterior door numbering, interior room numbering, 3M film installation on all exterior doors and side lights. Those would be the glass that's right next to the doors. And interior classroom door locks will be the same throughout all the buildings with the exception of the high school. The reason the high school has been left out of this is because it was nearly $50,000 to replace all those classrooms because of the amount of classrooms. So at Anson, we have $44,050, which includes all that. And I did bring an example of the door numbering system. This system would be the same that we have here at central office. And that is now at each and every school, and that's part of our mapping system that we have throughout the district through a company called Critical Response Group. So as we switch over to Fisher Elementary, in addition to those other items that I had mentioned, they are asking for digital radios. along with some access control in their main office to help create a person trap. So we have $49,900.
Eric?
Frank, yes.
Sorry, I have a question
Yes.
on the very first thing, so I just want to make sure I understand it before
Sure.
you go through all of them, because you said it was something that is the 3M film installation on exterior doors and
Yes.
side lights. I'm assuming that's something just so people can't see
So
clearly.
it's actually a clear
in?
film, and what it's designed to do is it won't take a bullet, but a bolt will go through there, but it keeps all the glass encapsulated. And so you don't have, so it's, somebody would have to work at trying to gain access into that building because it stays encapsulated.
Okay.
So they actually, it's a 3M design that was created during the Oklahoma City bombings after that because of all the shrapnel that killed people. So,
Well, and I think the other thing, the Columbine, or Sandy Hook, where the building was secured, but the shooter just shot through the front doors to gain access into the building.
Okay, thank you. I had no clue what that was. I would have been thinking it was like a shade, like kind of film the whole time, so.
yeah,
okay.
I apologize. I should have said something.
Thank you.
That's very expensive, and that's our, probably our biggest expense.
May I ask one more question?
Yes.
Is this $50,000 for each building or $50,000 for the district to take
For each
it?
building.
Got it.
Each building.
Thank you so
And
much.
that's why this is broken down.
Yes, I wanted to clarify.
So going back to Fisher, we have $49,900. Franklin Elementary, they're asking for some digital radios and some door replacements. Actually, 2 door replacements that aren't secure at this point. I mean, it wouldn't take much to get at them. So it's something that's critical that we need to replace. And then an additional camera, and waiting on an estimate on that additional camera to cover the southeast part of the property. Hogan Elementary, access control for 2 doors, in addition to all those other items that we talked about. And then moving on to Rogers, digital radios, exterior door replacement that gets used a lot. They don't know who's on the other side of that door, so and it's not a very good door, so it really needs to be replaced. And then access control for a door. Woodbury, digital radios in addition to those other items. And you'll note that we have $26,900 allocated. I've not met with that group specifically, but these would just be the things that Tetra Tech, the company that did the vulnerability study, recommended that we put in place. And then, just basically said these would be your mandatory things that you would want to take care of before moving on to other items. So there is some movement for some monies to be placed in other areas. Linehan, everything is the same as all the other buildings: exterior door number, interior door numbering, 3M film, and interior door locks. Miller would have the digital radios. Marshalltown High School, if you look at the 3M film installation, we're at $44,000 just for the high school. But if you think about the glass that's in that building, the roundhouse, for instance, there's just a lot of glass in that area that would have to be covered.
And these interior, or these, the teachers will be able to lock their doors from inside the
That's
classroom.
purpose, yes.
That's
So that's,
huge.
yep, it's just,
That is
you have to
huge,
think about
yeah.
too, you have substitute teachers in there at times, you might have somebody that doesn't know what to do, so it's just a matter of locking that button. One of the other things that was identified was the interior room numbering. A lot of times kids have no idea where they are in a classroom. I know from experience, when you ask people where they're supposed to go, they have no idea where that is. So if there was a situation that was actually inside of the classroom, these would be strategically placed in every classroom, and that would show them exactly where they are to help identify, if emergency responders had to get there quickly.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Marshtown Learning Academy, central office, because Marshtown Learning Academy is attached to this building, they would be, or they are eligible for the $50,000. There are some digital radios that are being requested. In addition, we have a door that's in this building that we really do need to get some access control on. And it's just been opened too many times that it needs to be secured at all times. And then here at central office, a double door person trap, waiting on an estimate for that.
So what is that? What is a double door person trap?
So a person trap is, we have it down here right now at central office, so we have those two wooden doors.
So the vestibule?
It's essentially, yes.
Got it.
Yep, and so it would be locked, and there would be, we'd have access control and a monitor where somebody could, monitor who's on the other side of that
So
building.
you'd buzz them into the first doors, then you'd buzz them in
Yes.
again to the second doors.
Well,
We-
no, the first doors they'd be able to access, but they're locked in that vestibule.
That makes
And
sense.
then what we're wanting to do is to get some more transparent doors that are a little bit more welcoming than, walking up to a wooden door and then buzzing and not seeing anyone. And it's good for us to have line of sight of people too, in addition to hopefully seeing them on the camera that's in the vestibule.
Yes.
So, Eric, I have another question.
Yes.
Why are we have a lot of sites that are asking for digital radios, but not everyone has that on that list? If those locations have some additional funds, why would we not just do digital radios kind of across the board, or do they already have them?
So they have radios. I know a lot of times analog is what they have, and it's working in their building. It might be a smaller building, might not have nearly the concrete that some of these have. For instance, the high school is layered with concrete. And it would make it hard on an analog radio to try to communicate with somebody that's maybe out in the parking lot. But some of these smaller buildings have zero problems with being able to communicate within their buildings if it's a little bit smaller building. But it is a question that's always asked about the radios. And there have been two schools that just don't feel like they need those radios because they have another means of communicating through a different style radio.
Okay.
Yeah, and Eric's been meeting with the safety teams in each of the buildings to identify what their building's unique priorities are. Lion's share of the stuff is universal across the district, as you've seen, but there are some differences too, so.
Well, and actually, one of these, like Lenahan has that whole different system with the cameras and the speakers too, so they maybe don't need that. I wasn't
No,
paying attention
and I've talked to
that.
them several times, and they feel like their radios are absolutely adequate.
Yeah.
And then district-wide, we're looking and we really need some sort of visitor management system. Something that would be able to identify, parents that are coming in, visitors of all kinds, maybe outside vendors, to do backgrounds to make sure that we were getting the right people in those buildings or not having the wrong people in them. So that would be able to, Amy is very familiar with that system and has been working on that in the past. So that would be an additional $2,500 per school for 3 years. And then the Welcome Center, obviously it's not really a school, so we didn't receive any kind of, we didn't receive the $50,000 allocation. So the Welcome Center, the $1,300 that we've already earmarked for the exterior door numbering, and then the interior room numbering, because we will have we will have a class in there. That's $1,300, but that will be coming out of the Buildings and Grounds Fund. Any questions?
And this may be a question for Randy too. The $50,000, does that have to be sent at that school, right? So if you only need $35,000, is the $15,000 just lost? Or
You
can
can
use it?
transfer it to another school within the district.
So if theoretically, if there was enough left, you could allocate that for the interior door locks at the high school? Okay.
Right now, we're...
I don't know if you're in that, it doesn't look like you're necessarily in that position.
Well, right
but-
now, we're at $383,600. And that doesn't include the $25,000 for the visitor management. So that would, we would have some funds for that.
Okay.
So you could do some of those locks even if you couldn't do all of them?
Yeah, so the high school right now was, for the interior classroom door locks was $48,240, and that would change out all those locks to a push style or a toggle style lock.
Based off this list, it looks like you would have, if you can transfer the funds between schools, you would have that available.
And we can spend this all the way up through December 2024. So this is just kind of those immediate needs that need to be taken care of right now to kind of get some of those summer projects taken care of.
Well, and I don't anticipate that we're probably going to get any more funding from the state for this purpose. So once the priorities have been determined for each building, which is yet to be done at a few of them, we can take a look at what's available and anything that additional that we need to spend to, for example, make sure all the locks are changed out. We'll just have to make a commitment to use either general fund or PEPAL.
And I would say that's a priority to have those locks changed. It's extremely important. You think about, like I said, you have a substitute teacher in there, or somebody that's not familiar with that classroom. There's an event that takes place and they can't lock the door. That leaves us that's a vulnerability that we don't need to have.
Well, in most of the classrooms I've been in, you'd have to actually exit the classroom, lock it from outside,
Yeah.
go back in. And the keys don't always work.
And that's seconds.
Yes.
So,
And just for me, from a prioritization standpoint, if the funds can be transferred between schools and we have a list that's kind of a requirements list, I would prefer we spend the funds on the requirements list regardless of which school it's for before we go to a request list by school.
There isn't really a requirements list. These were things that were identified by Tetra Tech as vulnerabilities. All of them are approved expenditures, and it's up to buildings and/or the district to determine how those monies are to be spent. So it's not a requirement like by law that we have to have this done.
I'm going to jump in on this. Per the grant FAQ, the school district is allowed to transfer excess funds from one building to another building when all improvements identified in the vulnerability assessment have been addressed at the initial building. So let's say building 1 is Anson. If we only spend $35,000, we can't transfer that $15,000 unless all of the vulnerability assessment has been met.
So we basically have to do this first, and then.
You have to meet all the vulnerability assessments at the identified building before you can transfer those excess funds, yes.
But I would say regardless, like with that issue, in one way, shape, or form, we would want to do that. We would want to get all those locks changed out, which is going to take time to do.
yeah, unfortunately, like I said, the high school has so much glass that's covering it with that 3M film is going to take a lot of money. I think, like I said, locking those doors, interior doors is critical. That needs to be as much of a priority as the 3M glass. We just don't have the funds to do that within this grant.
Other questions or comments?
So then, with that exception, does this meet all of the
Vulnerabilities.
identified vulnerabilities for the remaining schools? From that third party, what report?
Tetra Tech, yeah.
Yeah.
So I would have to look, and then I'd have to give you, I don't want to say yes and have that wrong, but right now, these would be the priorities that are listed on these sheets as the top priorities, and there is some excess monies that are left over.
Okay, I'd like to see at some future point, these are, like, this is what it costs to fix all of the vulnerabilities identified by Tetra Tech.
Tetra Tech, yes.
By school, so that we have that list of here's the identified vulnerabilities, here's how much it costs, before we would use any of these funds for anything that is not an identified vulnerability by Tetra Tech per school. Like, I want to know by school, yes, we've met all of those, and here's the ones that we can't meet for this school, and why.
So if you look at Rogers, for instance, their 3M film installation on the exterior doors is $3,500. They just don't have the.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
that does
yeah, yeah.
leave a little bit more, they come up to $26,000, but that's replacing a door and access control. So.
So I think maybe the part of that question is, are there things that were identified at Rogers that aren't on this list?
The high priorities are all on this list.
Okay, that's a good way to word it.
But I can't tell if that matches what the funds, if what you're saying matches what the fund requirements to spend are. Like, if you say the high priorities are identified, but are met, but there's still additional vulnerabilities from
The report.
the report,
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell if we're meeting all of those or not by school based off what you've put together, or how much of this is items that the school is requesting above and beyond that list.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of these, all of what Eric's identified are eligible expenditures by the grant. That's all we've been focused on.
Yep, I understand that.
And
but
there will
I-
be
I'm sorry,
additional
just a question.
expenditures that will be needed to meet all of the identified vulnerabilities beyond what the 50,000 per school is. We wouldn't be able to get all of that done in 1 year anyway, and we have till the end of
December 2024.
yeah, to get it done. But yeah, Eric can provide, what percentage of the things that were identified are going to be taken care of through this, of what remains, what would it take to get the rest of it done?
Yeah.
And then we'd have to figure out, where we would pull the funds to do that.
Because I don't feel comfortable approving this knowing there's things on this list that are not identified vulnerabilities from that report, even if the funds are available to support it. But if we meet all of those vulnerabilities, we can transfer that money to another school. I want to use this money to make sure we meet all of those identified vulnerabilities. And then, okay, what else do you need by school to prioritize, even if it's available by the fund? But, it's acceptable to spend that money on that item. If this we had this company come in and they did this assessment for us, and they've given us these needs, if we're not matching things up to be able to do the best that we can for all of our schools, then that's what I would like to see.
Well, that's why I mentioned, the exterior door numbering, the interior door numbering, the 3M film installation, the interior classroom doors, those are your main vulnerabilities that needed to be identified in all the schools. And including the radio installation reimbursement fee. The access control, the digital radios for the schools, those were additional, not as high priority as those other items that I had mentioned. Like I said, the numbering, those are all things that absolutely had to be taken care of.
But eligible expenditures,
With the $50,000
identified
grant,
eligible
yes.
expenditures.
And they did identify the interior classroom door locks
Yes.
as being essential.
Yes.
And okay, so I guess the question we have is, if those are essential, should we be, for instance, on Anson's, because that's the one I'm looking at right now.
Mm-hmm.
We would prioritize exterior and interior door numbering, the 3M film, and the interior classroom door locks.
Mm-hmm.
Wait on the radio and the main office access control until we make sure we have all of those interior classroom door locks on the high school?
No, so the exterior, interior, 3M film, and the interior classroom door locks, those are the mains that we tried to take care of it in all the schools.
Okay.
But because of the high expense of the high school, nearly $50,000, that we couldn't, we don't have the money to do that under this grant. But all the schools receive that. In addition to that, some schools, in addition to those 4 items, some schools chose access control. Some schools would choose the radios. Some schools chose doors that needed to be identified and fixed or replaced.
But those things those items that they chose, were they on the vulnerability report?
All these are, yes.
Well, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything that's in here is part of that vulnerability report. Everything that's in here.
Okay, that's the piece I was missing
Okay,
from
no.
earlier in the
No, I
conversation.
didn't, no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, everything was, everything that's in this report came from the Tetra Tech vulnerability study.
Okay.
Okay.
And our goal will be to eventually take care of everything that's listed in the report. We just needed to know in year one here, based on the funding that we're being provided, what do we need to knock out? And then we'll take care of the rest.
Yeah, I feel like we need to take care of these things immediately. I mean, we have the monies, we need to take care of these as soon as possible.
Well, we have to if we want the $50,000 for building,
Yes.
those things.
Right. Which is fortunate, we get the 50,000 per building to use towards this.
Yeah.
The one other thing you might remember from, I think it's been 2 years ago now, when we started to pursue the digital mapping, we were kind of ahead of the game when Chief Tupper introduced us to the company, and we piloted it at the high school, and then the board agreed to purchase the digital mapping for all the other buildings. Well, that was an additional funding stream for which the state gave every school the opportunity to do. However, the state chose a different vendor than what we used, and so we're still waiting to hear back. I was given verbal approval that we would be reimbursed for up to what the state spent on the cost to do the buildings by the previous DE director, and who has verified that with the current DE leadership, but we still haven't received affirmative whether we'll also get reimbursed for that.
Yeah.
Which was 30-some thousand dollars, I
Yeah,
think.
36,000, I believe. Yep, so all buildings are numbered and all buildings are mapped for first responders in the event that we needed a situation arose.
Are there other questions? So then, is there a motion to approve the various safety-related projects as presented?
So moved.
Second.
McGinnis, Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stick around for policies if you'd like.
I think he's going to decline the invitation.
Okay, so then the next item is setting a public hearing on the school infrastructure sale, the revenue bonds. Right, Randy?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to give a brief?
Yeah, I had a brief summary, news and notes. I won't add much to that, but for the high school CTE and the remaining HVAC, Finance Committee met last week and met with Matt Gillespie from Piper Sandler to talk different financing options for that project with other long-range facility needs that the district is currently reviewing and assessing. The best option to move forward with this particular project would be to issue SAVE revenue bonds. And with the new recent legislation with moving bond elections to only once a year, while there is an election that's needed to issue SAVE bonds, we are still required by our law to hold a public hearing that we are intending to utilize SAVE funds for this project. After the public hearing, the public has 14 days to petition that, and where they can ask, with that petition, they can ask the district to take that revenue bond to an election and vote on it at that point. The difference between a revenue bond vote election and a general bond vote election is that with the revenue bond election, you only need 50% of the vote versus 60% with a GO bond. So this is just the first step in that process, because in the event that we were to be petitioned, we would have to put it on the November ballot to still meet the current timelines that we have set in place to start this project next summer. So if in the event that we were to wait, let's say, and hold the public hearing in, say, December, and then we were to get petitioned, we couldn't hold the election for the revenue bonds until November of 2024. So timeline-wise, that is the reasoning that you were seeing this now. And then assuming everything falls into place, then we will be looking at probably either late this year or early first part of next year, working with Matt Gillespie and the Piper team to issue bonds to finance the project and go through that formal process. That's my quick additional Cliff Notes summary on that. If there's any other questions, I will field those.
Hearing none, is there a motion to set a public hearing on the proposed issuance of approximately $10 million in school infrastructure, sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds to be held July 10, 2023 at 5 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
Lowry McGinnis, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0.
So hopefully we'll have 2 public hearings, July 10th.
Hopefully.
The next item is a change order for the stadium project, and it's really kind of a follow-up to what was approved at the last meeting. There were some change orders that were presented and approved. This particular change order has no cost effect. It just simply gives permission for Larson to charge against the contingency, the previously approved change order costs.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve Marshalltown Athletic Complex change order number 2 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Stanley Lowry, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Policies.
Okay, we had a large number of reviews that are now first readings, and I'll just go through them all quickly. There were not any changes or adjustments to any of these that you saw for the first time on June 5th. 200.4 board members' social media engagement. 203 board of directors conflict of interest. 210.5 notice of board meeting with a new title, meeting notice. 401.5 R1 employee records regulation. 407.2 resignation of certified personnel. The new title will be licensed employee contract release. 501.2 non-resident students. 504.5 student fundraising. 504.5 R1 student fundraising regulations. 508.5 activity ticket funds. 604.6 instruction at a post-secondary educational institution. 701.2 transfer of funds. 704.6 online fundraising campaigns, crowdfunding. 708 R1, which has a new number, 708, care and maintenance of disposal of school district records. 710.1 R1, school nutrition program, civil rights complaints procedure. 710.1 E1, school nutrition program notices of non-discrimination. 710.1 E2, child nutrition program, civil rights complaint form. And 901, public examination of school district records. So, I don't know how best to proceed in terms of grouping them, or if we can.
I think we'll group them, adopt, and as one group and amend as the other group.
Okay.
That's what I typed up, so that helps, thanks. Are there questions about any of those policies? No changes were made to them from the last meeting, correct?
Correct.
Not, then we need a motion to adopt and waive the second reading for policies 200.4, 504.5R1, 710.1R1, 710.1E1, 710.1E2, again, that's the last one, 710.1E2.
So moved.
Second.
Stanley Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. And then we need a motion to amend and waive the second reading for policies 203, 210.5, 4015R1, 4072, 5012, 5045, 5085, 6046, 7012, 7046, 708, and 901.
So moved.
Second.
Lowry, Stanley, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0.
So as far as the initial reviews, there was one policy in addition to what Zach was asked to review, and that is what Stacy referred to earlier in today's meeting, 804.9, stock Narcan supply. This is a new policy being recommended by ASB, and this would return as a first reading on July 10th.
Are there any questions about that policy? Okay. Zach, your policies.
We're going to do some initial reviews. 802.1 is the maintenance schedule. Recommend no changes, and we're just going to update the legal and cross-references and mark it as review. 802.2, request improvements. Again, no changes, just update the legal and cross-references and mark as reviewed. 802.3, emergency repairs, same thing. 802.7, energy management conservation, change district to school board in the language, update the legal and cross-references. This will be the first reading. 802.7R, no changes, mark as reviewed. 802.8, use of contract service, no changes, mark as reviewed. 803.1, obsolete equipment, no changes, mark as reviewed. 804.1, facility safety program, no changes, mark as reviewed. 804.1R, safety management manual, no changes, mark as reviewed.
Zach, excellent work.
I like all the no changes.
There's no right policies.
No right policy. Did you ask for permission?
No.
Oh.
Are there any questions about any of those policies? If not, 802.7 will come back for a first reading, and the remainder will be marked as reviewed. Abby. Eric did stick around for policies.
I was just kidding.
While we're waiting, is our next meeting the 10th or 17th?
10th.
Our website says the 17th. And we all thought it was the 17th, right?
Yeah, we moved it at a prior meeting.
Sounds good. I'll make sure it's updated on the website.
Thought I'd close out tonight since I started the meeting. So tonight I thought I'd give a little bit of an update on the website redesign, where things are going, since we are in the final stretch before kicking it off. Kind of starting off with general website notes. Juicebox is currently working on quality assurance testing across the site, cleaning up visual styling and functional issues. And so as they go along, they clean something up. Sometimes something else pops up. So you kind of have to go back and forth with all the QA testing right there. Amy Harmson, Jen Harrington, and myself reviewed all of our current pages, which is well over 70 at this point of just information, photos, cleaning up stuff, seeing where we needed links, and just listing out, hey, we need juice box to clean up these areas as well. So hopefully some of the issues we saw as well will be cleaned up by QA testing. There we go. Do a little walkthrough of the website currently. So since Stalzer has given us photos and photos and photos, it's kind of combing through all of that and seeing where it would fit best, resizing them, seeing where they would fit on our page, because we have certain dimensions with our photo resizing. Not every photo fits perfectly with the size dimensions, so making sure, you know, like with this photo here, we have to size it properly, and then scrolling down. Some of the photos down here as well, done by myself or by Stalzer. And then scrolling up, departments. Showing off some of the central office photo shoot day as well. Kind of telling our story within central office. Each of the departments were willing to take some photos, kind of show off, you know, who they are as people. As much as the schools are telling the story, our departments are also telling a story, so kind of want to show off the best of our employees, the best of our kids, best of our staff. So that's kind of the photo side. And then one area in particular that I wanted to show off to the board tonight is your pages. So I've been working hard to putting together information, looking at other school districts, seeing what their board pages have, putting together that information. Our previous website really didn't have a lot of content to move over, so like with the moving analogy from last time, had to buy some IKEA furniture for you guys. Dr. Schutte and Randy were amazing to work with to kind of figure out, you know, where do we need information. You might have seen an email from me as well, asking for some information about you as board members. I've learned a lot about Sean this week. I've learned a lot about Bonnie. Didn't know she played D1 basketball, so that's a really interesting fact. Immediately started looking for stats, couldn't find them. So Bonnie, if you want to let me know about your shooting average.
Definitely. We stalked you pretty hard, Bonnie.
From the corner, I'm just telling you.
I asked Abby if she had ever heard on 6-on-6 basketball, heard about 6-on-6.
Well, we never had 6-on-6 basketball.
Oh, where you were at?
We never had basketball at MHS when I was at MHS.
When you were playing for Sooners?
Oh, no, I had to walk on there. That's where I was able to play basketball for the first time for a school. MHS didn't have girls' basketball. I'm an oldster.
So right now I have some fill-in text, so the ones that still need to fill out the questionnaire. Okay. If you can do that this week, I would greatly appreciate it. And then let's see, what else? So the same with the rest of our website. I want to make sure that I'm telling a story about you guys as well. I think it really helps with the community connect with you guys, really shows off your personality. I know it really showed me a different dimension to who each of you are. Another area that I wanted to show off was committees, kind of really highlighting how much you guys are involved. Little description as well. I think it's a good informational tool with community members to understand how much goes behind the school board, how much time and dedication you put towards learning in these areas and, decision-making, learning about our district. So that's that area. Another area I know I'll have to change soon already is the legislative priorities. So how to do some information digging for that. I think it's a good area to really show off, this is what we're passionate about. This is our priorities for this school year, that when we meet with our representatives of the area, this is what we're passionate about. Another item that will have to be updated regularly is meeting dates and procedures. This was a page that I wanted to put together to kind of help explain to people, what happens at school board meetings, public involvement, kind of explaining the process. They can't just walk up to the mic. There's a certain set steps in order to be in front of the microphone. You have a certain time. So information that I feel, will really put people a step ahead when they show up to school board. And then with that being said, you might have seen some of the photos of you guys showing up. I'm going to ask you for next school board meeting, please dress up for a nice group photo, and that will be featured here on the pages. So
I think at least one board member won't be in attendance for that.
Oh, okay. Then we'll figure out, when the best date is. Either that or I'm really great at Photoshop, one of the two.
So I think we talked about this, Abby, but I think another category of board development, and then within that, we can recognize the board for their recognition of excellence
Yeah.
from ISB on the Team Achievement Award over multiple years.
Yeah. I think that was a possible section. Right now, I just have it as a paragraph right here, kind of explaining about board members. But I know you guys are doing awesome work as a team and as a board, so definitely want to highlight that to people as well.
I have a question, actually.
Sure.
So you have up here petitioning the board.
Yeah.
In another section, you had like what to expect at a board meeting if you want to talk. And then you had the committee section. So in the committee section, there's also an opportunity on some of those committees for community members to be involved on those committees. I'm wondering if maybe those three things could be like engagement with the board or something like that, where you have a section where you talk about this is how you can be involved from a committee standpoint. This is how you could be involved at a board meeting. This is how you could, just to kind of pull some of those different things together for people.
Yep.
Might be a good, or leave them separate, but pulling them together might help people engage more.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
Or engage in a way we want them to engage with us. Right.
The petitioning the board page was one I discussed with Randy about, and I noticed one or two other surrounding school districts have it on theirs. It's literally a word-for-word transfer from Iowa Department of Education. They have a pamphlet talking about petitioning the board. So put that information into place, transparency. I am totally up to hearing, we're really interested about having this type of information on our school board pages. Some of that I can work on, before going live, or some of it might have to kick the can a little bit, develop it, show it off before hitting publish, so. And then one final update that I wanted to give, and another reason why Amy is sitting with me tonight, staff directory. We have given all of the necessary information for the staff directory to Juicebox, and it is currently up to them to plug in that data. I thought possibly, it'd be in early this week. I asked Dale from Juicebox when he was expecting an ETA, and he said end of the week. So definitely going to hold him to that, along with a couple other items as well. So, any questions?
It looks really nice.
Nicely done.
On the teacher part, curiosity, you have our, like, a little bit about us, I guess, in there. And, but if the teacher wants to have like a little bit about them, can they submit that to you?
We're really working to automate a lot of processes, so I think Abby has done a great job of finding places to highlight and spotlight teachers. So I could see that more in like the Bobcat headlines, and then linking to our social media to ensure that we are getting some of that teacher voice and those types of things. But as far as the staff directory, we're trying to keep that as automated as possible because it changes so quickly, and we just don't want to get into the situation where that person started 2 weeks ago and they're not up there yet. So as far as the staff directory specifically, we won't be doing much more than what Nora has so graciously given us access to.
And I know on the front page as well, the staff spotlight section as well, I really want to keep that updated, through Bobcat headlines or through employee of the quarter, just switching through all sorts of information. And it's really a great spot to tell the teacher's story through this, or staff's across the board, so.
I've talked with Abby about this, and this was an effort we made on the last website that was difficult to keep current, but I really do believe historically, and I think still presently, our staff who have pursued successfully advanced degrees is a differentiator between us and other districts. So I'm hoping in some way, shape, or form, at least that can be acknowledged through the directory. There's value too in bios, obviously, but I understand what you're talking about in terms of that just further complicates the automation.
Yeah, we definitely don't have access to that, so that would be something that HR would have to add to their databases. And then also, since it's automated, there's a template on the side of the actual contact. So if people had, 3, 5, 6, 7 different accolades behind their name, then it becomes an issue of how many do you pull in, what's the format of that. So I think it's definitely something we can continue to explore, but that also should be something that we would go live with what we have and then look to see how we can give, proper acknowledgement to those endeavors on their behalf.
Yeah, and I think, it does do that, but it's more important that our public see the high-quality staff who have advanced levels of education, especially if they're shopping schools and districts and stuff.
I don't currently have a field in our system. We used our last one.
But your spotlight might be a place to start that, because your
think so,
principals
too.
should know which teachers are getting their doctorates, which teachers are getting their masters. And so they can maybe target those people for staff spotlights, because then when people get on staff spotlight, that's what's going to show up.
I think that's a great idea.
So.
Honestly, I'm really excited about this new website. It is a great sandbox to build off of. I know for me, WordPress is my background. I've used it quite a bit through college and coming out of college. So playing through it, looking through it, thinking about the possibilities, I'm really excited about how this will benefit the district and help the district tell its story.
So does each individual school have input on what their page looks like?
As far as the template, no, but they will have the ability to keep it updated, so we're actually already talking with 12-month secretaries about sometime in July, training them on a few key aspects of it. WordPress works in blocks, so you can give certain people permission just to this block or just to this block. So they'd have the ability to definitely update all of the events in the calendar for their school and keep that up to date. And then even some of those news items, and we're definitely working on the announcements. We're having them create a templated daily announcements, daily bulletin, so that can be done right on here and be linked right on here. So they definitely have the ability to make changes that are sort of pertinent right now.
Okay.
But as far as the overall template, we really want that to look cohesive from school to school. And this isn't exactly the way it's gonna look. There is a missing piece right there where the principal will be up there. There's some automated functions that we're still waiting on Juicebox to come through with. So we are definitely on track to have a hard deadline for them on Friday. And then next week, we'll start talking about what it's going to take to go live before the July 5th registration deadline. So we're talking, weeks, more like days.
Well, you guys have done an amazing amount of work to get things on our end, and I know that you did have consultation meetings early on with the building principals to have them look at, and the directors. Here's what you got, what do we need to change, what needs to be added, what should be removed. So I think people have had a lot of opportunity to provide feedback for what ultimately would be in that template.
Yeah, and Abby has done an incredible amount of work, so she's just been an incredible team member for sure.
I think all of us on board with this project has really poured a lot of thought and energy to really make sure this shines for everybody involved, every single page, every single person, to really show the best.
Thank you, Abby. Thanks, Amy. We've got the schedule for the 23-24 board meetings. Other than Labor Day and MLK Day, that follows the normal first and third Monday of the month, and with one meeting in July. Questions about that? We need a motion to approve the meeting dates for the 23-24 school year then.
So moved.
Second.
Wall, Stanley. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Reminders, next week is the ribbon cutting for the Welcome Center. That's at 5:30 with an open house to follow. Sarah's not here, but she still has policies for the July 10 meeting.
Chamber banquet,
Chamber banquet is the
Thursday, 29th.
the 29th. Summer graduation, the June graduation is also the 29th. Yep.
Are they both at the same time?
They are. The summer graduation is at the Orpheum, I believe, and the chamber, I don't know where the chamber dinner is.
Midnight Garden.
It's on the east
Is that
side.
on like Olive?
Yeah, off of Olive.
17th and?
17th.
Yeah, out there by the soccer fields.
Yes.
Yeah. Committee reports, Finance Committee met last week. We primarily talked about bonding and financing for projects. I don't know if there's anything else we need to say tonight. Is there, Randy, Zach? Okay. And then Acer met this morning. Darren, anything from that you want to cover?
The county was represented and talked primarily about them getting closer and closer to everybody being in the courthouse. The court system is the one thing that is not in there, and basically they were directed to want it to be fully completed versus substantially completed before the courts are moved in, so it sounds like maybe mid-August.
Mid-August is what they said, yeah.
And then,
But the scaffolding is down. We went by today and there isn't any.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think they're
Scaffolding is nice.
working on outside grounds work and that sort of thing.
That's nice.
Joel Greer was in attendance, and he kind of updated us on, I think it's been made public that we're without a city administrator right now. The interim city administrator is going to end his tenure at the end of this month versus being there for the entire summer. So they're hopeful that they can fast track the hiring process. Otherwise, starting July 1st, Joel becomes mayor and city administrator and private attorney.
Oh, yeah.
I think he just said in general, there's some potential for additional changes too. So it's kind of a tough time, obviously, for the city, and I think there's ramifications of that, such as with the Orpheum parking lot project in conjunction with Main Street and that sort of thing, which we'll probably talk about down the road. Iowa Valley Community College had a report from Dr. Lilienthal, and she said basically enrollment's looking really good for next fall. Their renovations and additions and such are going really well, primarily with the gymnasium work this summer, and they had some work that was being done in the spring and in the summer with some office spaces that are either being completed or will be completed for the upcoming school year. They've got 7 new faculty members hired, including a new women's basketball and women's soccer coach. And they're heavy into the comprehensive search for their next president to replace Dr. Christy Fisher, who will be working until October is when she makes her transition. With the chamber, John Hall talked gleefully about the fact that the Iowa Association of Esports has chosen Marshtown to be the state tournament host for the coming school year. That will mean 3 different times, fall, winter, and spring. We'll host a state tournament, which will be great. And he just kind of talked briefly about how initially, it's really going to be kind of a shared effort amongst the college and the high school and the Orpheum. But over time, he anticipates that there'll be further improvements necessary within the Orpheum, but then also it'll probably outgrow that facility, over time too. So, but they did a great job working with us and MCC to make that happen.
So that's where that would be located?
Yeah,
Would be in the-
all 3, the black box primarily,
theater. Okay,
and probably
okay.
using the auditorium.
Okay.
They were also very excited about being very close, thinking the first week of July they'll be moving out of the church across the street into their new space on Main Street. And then they also mentioned that Marshtown was recently designated a home base Iowa community. So it's a community that's very supportive of relocation or location of veterans. Emily Piper had some exciting news to share related to having received, I think it's a 5-year grant for what was to be a halftime employee, and now with Iowa State's support is a full-time employee that will be working initially in Miller to help support students with career readiness efforts, and then that person will matriculate along with the students into the high school over that 5-year period. So I don't know exactly what it's going to look and feel like, but it reminded me a lot of like IJAG efforts or Gear Up efforts and that sort of thing, but there'll be a number of other students that will be receiving additional supports to be college and career ready through that.
Plus parent engagement.
Yeah, and parent engagement's a huge part of that. I think actually they work with 12 families, I think, is the number that she had shared. And I think those were the highlights
That was the
anyway.
main, yep. Okay. Well, what have we done this evening to improve education for the students in Marshalltown?
Adopted the science curriculum for middle school.
I liked the MEP presentation. I like seeing the connection. And I don't know if you remember, Bonnie, but I first started at Emerson in 2001, and Terry started bringing me to those meetings
Yes.
early on.
Yeah,
So-
2002 is when we started that, so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
So that kind of has a
Full
like-
circle effect.
Yeah, it's
Feels
nice
good,
to
doesn't
see
it?
that kind of coming back around and everything that's happening with that today, where it was, 20 years ago.
Well, I remember it starting and them coming to us as staff, and it is neat to see what's happened with it.
I think too that just putting the additional cameras for the buses, just the safety issue for our children. I've seen vehicles just being inappropriate around buses, just being out and about in the community at specific times during the day, and it could have been disastrous. And so,
I was shocked though still when he said they had about 5 incidents a day.
Yeah.
That makes me wonder if we need to have public service announcements or posters put up on some of the businesses. People need to be reminded that they're supposed to be stopping for these school buses.
a ticket might remind them.
Yeah, well, it would be nice to be
Apparently
proactive.
not, because most of them are going through.
Yeah, every year Chief Tupper pushes out communications related to that before the school year starts, and then oftentimes he pushes something out as we head into winter as
Right.
well.
That can be really dangerous when those kids are running into buses.
And I like the mentoring and induction handbook. I think my read on that was it's everything that you're doing currently, right? We're just putting it in one place, and I just liked having that. I thought that was really neat, so. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll take about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and do a closed session.
Well, you're gonna love next month then, when there's a business procedures manual put in front of
I
you.
love, oh boy, the more handbooks and manuals, the better.
So-
Let's write it all down.
Write it all down.